Hey everyone, today's guest probably needs no introduction, Dave Pascoe. So Dave is all over the interwebs. You probably know him as the quote unquote 62-year-old longevity athlete whose epigenetic pace of aging beats Brian Johnson, although he's chronologically older, which is a harder thing to do, and also not spending $2 million a year. But as we'll get into it, I think Dave is completely underrated. So with that, welcome Dave to the channel.
Shucks. Thanks. It's great to be here. I'm glad we're finally meeting face to face.
Yes, I agree. Same. So, all right. So and it's funny because it's like uh, the superhero backstory. Like I humbly say for everybody watching that I kind of look at what we're doing as like longevity superheroes, where for better or worse, some of us are on the right track, some may be guiding others on the wrong track, but we're trying to live as healthily as possible for as long as possible and going beyond just that eat real food and exercise kind of mantra. So I kind of look at that as like longevity superhero. So I see you as a longevity superhero. So I kind of want to know the backstory. How does Batman become Batman or Superman become Superman, right? So were you always interested in health and fitness as a kid, or did that develop? How did that start off for you?
Yeah, I think I was always interested in health and fitness as a kid. Y- One of my earliest influence, I think, was watching the movie Rocky, seeing Sylvester Stallone, jogging through the streets. I did the whole thing. I put on the sweatsuits, would go out jogging early morning, drink the raw eggs, the whole nine yards. So that had a big impact on me.
That was at what age? Like how old were you?
Gosh, that movie came out in what, 75, 76? So I would have been like 13, 14 years old.
Okay, so then 13, home gym, a Joe Weider bench press in the basement kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, except that was out in the garage. Yeah.
All right, so then like bodybuilding magazines, were you into that also as a kid, or it was just the Rocky set it off?
Not really, just the Rocky set it off. And then, of course, right about that time, I think I was transitioning maybe from junior or into junior high, from junior high, wasn't quite high school yet. Girls started paying attention to muscles, right? So that was a huge driver for me.
It's same. It was like I went to summer camp and I saw there were a couple of kids my age, and the girls, for whatever reason, were flocking to them. And I was like, when I come back to this camp next summer, I'm gonna get in the gym and do all the things. So for me, it was exactly the same. But so basically, it was just Rocky. There weren't any other, fitness motivators.
Not really. No, yeah, I think Rocky did it for me.
And
Yeah.
then what was your trick?
I'm going
Yeah.
to apologize. My voice is a little hoarse. I'm dealing with a summer cold, so it keeps going in and out.
So quick side note, my nighttime respiratory rate, which is a marker of immune activation, for me, it's only gone above, well, pretty close to 14 with vaccination. So the 3 times I got vaccinated, respiratory rate like 16 or higher. So usually 13 and a half average. So I know that if it starts to trickle in that direction, I've got
Yeah,
something funky going on.
something's
So for
happening.
the past 5 days, I'm like slowly creeping up and I don't know what it is. So
Mhm.
it may be summer cold, just like you. I don't
Yeah,
know.
be on the lookout.
All right. All right. So how many days a week? What was the approach? It was just like every day. How many hours? Like what was the initial approach?
Oh, yeah, back then I had no plan. I didn't know anything. I mean, I still don't really know anything. I'm still learning, but back then I was just screwing around in the backyard with the weights, doing the bicep curls and stuff, trying to get the bis and tris looking good, trying to build the chest. Just did like what friends recommended. I did have one friend that worked at a place called BioFit, and he took me through a routine once there. And it was one of those routines where they scream at you the whole time, like, you're gonna come on, push, you wussy. And I'm like, I got yelled at enough at home by my parents. I didn't need that too. So that didn't appeal to me very much.
I
So I
never
just kind
I
of did
never
my own thing.
understood. I never understood when if you're under a bench, just as an example, and you have that personality type behind you, like talking the whole time. I'm basically like, shut up, let me focus on pushing the weight.
Right.
So, but some people respond differently, So uh,
Yeah, that wasn't my thing.
yeah. All right. So did you play high school sports or it was just like a,
No, I really, really wanted to play football badly. In all through elementary school, I mean, that was my dream. I wanted to be like the high school quarterback. That was I don't know. That was my childhood fantasy, right? But yeah, about the time I was in junior high, I got braces on my teeth. And my parents said, "No way, you're not playing any sports with braces on." So that pretty much ruined all my plans. And then, the working out didn't help much because I had braces on my teeth. I had, hair that was sticking out to here because that's what everybody did, right? Total dork, absolute dork. So
But
yeah,
I wouldn't say total dork because total dork implies no fitness at all, right? I think the stereotype, which seems like a derogatory thing to say a dork, right? But I think the stereotype of a dork is someone who's just academic and not into training or fitness or any of these things, right? So I get that because I grew up the same exact way, academic, but hey, so I don't know. It's not about me, it's about you, but quick story. In
I'm still
junior,
interested. Maybe we can talk about that later.
or it's just one big mix, right? But
I've
um,
heard you on interviews. I find so many similarities between us. It's cool. It's
yeah,
very cool.
this may be different though. So junior high, we had a football team after school, like, which grade has the best football team kind of thing. And I grew up playing football, like the same. Like I wanted to play high school football because kids on my block played high school football. I looked up to them. So anyway, I played a lot. This wasn't like I was pretty good too. So for a little guy. So anyway, seventh grade came around and the quote unquote popular kids had their friends on this little football team. And I was like, put me in the game. I got so annoyed. It was like they wouldn't put me in. So yeah, anyway, quick side story. All right, so then and I know that there's your high school experience, there was a computer science, like a hacking story, a biohacker story, but I don't know, if people are interested in that, I'll direct them to where, I don't know if you want to talk about that. I'm trying not to get you in
Sure.
trouble.
No, we can talk about a little. I think probably the statute of limitations on that
True.
probably run out. So
So wait, so you had coding skills or you all always interested in computer science?
yeah, yeah. I think I took my first computer class in 1977. It was
Wow.
Fortran 77, and loved it. Absolutely loved it. But back in those days, we were doing it on punch cards. So, I mean, you can imagine we're sitting at this, huge punch card machine, which is like a giant typewriter. It's got this stack of cards that you put in the hopper, and you can only type in one statement at a time on one card. And if you screwed that up, you had to throw the card away, start all over again with the next one. And then, if you imagine like all the different statements that you would have in a computer program, your deck could be this big. So I used to carry this, well, it was a camera case, and cameras back then were pretty large. It looked like a giant purse, but it was stacked. It was just about the right size to hold my deck of computer cards. So I had that strapped over my shoulder, and that's how I walked around the halls in high school, with my dorky computer deck stacked there. But we could only run a program once per day because there was no computer. There were no terminals when we first started. The teacher would take this deck, all of our decks, collect them, and he would drive over to our intermediate school district where they had the mainframe, and he would run all these things as a batch job. So we would get our results back the next day and find out, oh, geez, I had a syntax error. Frustrating. So it would take all week just to run one program.
I can't even imagine. I look at coding now and I can't even imagine back then in the prehistoric days of trying to code, so
It
uh,
truly was prehistoric. Yeah. Good name for it, or good word for it.
but I guess there was a time where you hacked into the school database and this the rap went around school that somebody's hacking into the computer database and you were talking to your
Yeah.
friend about that,
Yeah, well, it wasn't just our school's database, it was our county's database because it
Ah,
was their mainframe system. We had in our library, there was a thing that you could sign up for. It was called the Michigan Occupational Information System. And it was designed for high school students to be able to try to figure out what they wanted to do for a living. So it would walk you through a series of questions just to see what your aptitudes were and your interests. And then at the end, it would spit out a list of things that you might, have, might be inclined to do. So I used to have a free hour and I would volunteer in the library to take other students through this. Many times students would sign up and then they wouldn't show up. So I had just time to play with it myself. But having been a programmer, I knew that, not all programmers are very conscious about how they do bounds checking on input. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start putting this thing through its paces and see how good they were with the coding. And sure enough, I do some creative inputting. I found I could get the program to abort. And then when it did, I was at a command prompt at the base of the operating system, and I could go anywhere I wanted to. And of course I did. So,
So
and
what was the goal? I mean, it was just to look around and see how what's under the hood, or it was just
yeah, curiosity more
yeah.
than anything. It wasn't like I wanted to do anything malicious. It was just I just really wanted to see what was out there. So I started exploring all the different things that were in people's accounts, and I found that there was a professor somewhere that was working on it was a Star Wars game. Now back then games weren't graphical; they were text-based. So you would type in that you're doing something, and it would come back and say, okay, it would like describe a scenario of what you're seeing, and then you would have to guess what to do next. So in playing this game, it was pretty fun. It would always bomb out at a certain point. It would hit an error and bomb. And as the weeks went by, this didn't get fixed, and it was kind of annoying to me because I really wanted to keep playing the game. So I fixed it. And that was my first mistake. I made a change, right? And that was detected because apparently I guess the bug or the error had been confounding this person for a while and they couldn't get past it. And all of a sudden now it was working. They're like, hey, wait, what's going on here? Yeah. So lo and behold, I think I was just trying to think what year or what grade that was in. I think that was like seventh grade. I don't time frame. I'm not exactly positive. Maybe it was 10th, probably 10th grade. Yeah. Because there was a senior that was in one of my computer classes that worked for the data center. And we got talking one day and he starts bragging to me about how cool his job is and how smart he is. And he started telling me about this hacker that they were trying to track. And I was kind of fascinated. And as he told me more, I got kind of shocked because I realized, wait, this is me he's describing. And so like now I'm just in total shock and awe about this story. So I was like glued to his every word. Really? So what did he do next? What did you guys do? And so he was telling me everything they were doing to find this person, which just made me laugh because then I knew everything to avoid. So I continued to poke around and prod around and just have a good old time out there. And I could see every grade of every student in the entire school district, the entire county. And I could have changed any of those grades, but I didn't dare because another change would have attracted a lot more attention. But I really, at that point, I thought that there was only a couple of students that would have been capable of that, and I would have been one of them they would have looked at. So yeah, I didn't touch that.
Well, I'm glad you didn't take it further because the anonymous hackers and well, Grant, I have nothing against anonymous. Don't at me anonymous, my gosh. But I'm sure you could.
Painting a target on your face right now. Right?
I hope not, but
No.
in a parallel universe, maybe there's a Dave that took it a step farther and then started changing it, all kinds of stuff. But which then brings me into movies, and this is just a side, I know off track, but it's on my list because I think I want people to get to know the full version that is you, right? So when The Matrix first came out, were you just like related to it, hacker, right? Real
Oh,
world.
very much so. Yeah. Even before that, I mean, the movie War Games came out right about the same time that I was doing my hacking. And I'm like, this is so cool because this is exactly what I'm doing. Wasn't touching any government systems and wasn't like invoking any thermonuclear war or anything like that, thankfully. But yeah, those kind of movies like really got to me.
So
And The
War
Matrix
Games.
especially.
Go say that again.
And
War.
The Matrix especially. Yeah.
Yeah, just real quick, the War Games. I completely forgot about that movie, and like
Capture Frederick.
I can't believe this is like 50 years ago. I can't believe it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, so wait, so The Matrix. So I guess you related more to War Games than The Matrix.
Well, at that time, because that was the movie that came out when I was doing that. I mean, Matrix came out so much later and I was a lot further along, in that. So,
Right, right. I see. I
yeah.
got you. For me, The Matrix is in my all four of them. I know people are like the first one is great, and I relate to all four of those, like in so many different ways. But
And
um,
I had to go back and watch each one as the next one came out too, just so I was refreshed and ready to go.
yeah. So it sounds like that's not in your top list of top movies, even though you've got the coding background and these.
Well, I mean, I was a movie geek. I would go see every movie that came to the theater the weekend that it came out. So people at work always would ask me. In fact, I had like a little blog back before blogs were even a thing. It was hard coded, right? I had like an Excel spreadsheet of the movies that I saw that weekend, and I rated them, and I would have the list of the actors' names that were in them. And so people at work would want copies of this, so I'd have to put it out on the file server, and everybody would download that so they'd know what to rent when it finally came to to DVD. So yeah,
Blockbuster,
I mean,
block,
movies,
block.
everything. I saw everything.
Hey, it's like Blockbuster Dave Pascoe, right? It's like you're the. So wait, so what would
Pretty
you say
much.
that since you're a movie buff, what would you put like which genre? What would you put as your top, their top five as the movies, for you?
Oh gosh, that would be impossible. I know people have asked me that before, and I really can't nail it down. One movie that's was incredibly watchable that I saw probably the most was Beverly Hills Cop. I don't know why. It was just a fun movie. It had
Yeah.
great pace to it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a classic. Yeah. So
yeah.
so sci-fi is not
Oh,
your
sci-fi is my jam. Absolutely. Yeah, like RoboCop, really love that. All the Star Trek, and the Star Wars. Um, yeah. I mean, you name it, time travel stuff, really awesome.
Alien. What about the Alien franchise, Prometheus, that whole.
Oh yeah, that too. And I know there's another one coming out soon on that, so I'm kind of curious to see what they do with the reboot.
Yeah, it doesn't seem as good as what's already been, but you never know, right? So
It's frustrating when they just keep rehashing stuff instead of coming up with new concepts.
yeah. All right. So okay, so now we've got you out of high school, coding, and then college comes, right? So you computer science major or what was
Yeah. Yeah, I double majored computer science and psychology.
psychology? So what was the plan with the double major?
Really no plan. I was just fascinated with psychology, so I did enough of the coursework that I just needed 24 more credits in anything to actually have a double degree. But I didn't think that there was really anything I could do with just a bachelor's in psychology. And I didn't want to become a social worker or anything like that. I was just fascinated by people.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard you say that about you just observed everyone around you, like you're the observer, right? So I think you
Yeah.
mentioned before that in high school you saw all of the other or some of the other kids like partying a lot, and you're like, I see what that can lead to. I don't want to go down that road. So have you ever Briggs Myers personality type? Do you know your personality type?
I wanted to do that in preparation for this just to see what it would be today, and I didn't get to it, so I apologize. But, I've taken tests like that in the past, but it'd be decades ago now. And it used to be any kind of test like that that I took where there was a quadrant of things, I would land right smack in the middle of
Hmm.
all four quadrants,
Interesting.
which I guess makes me a bit of a chameleon. But yeah,
That's the best way. I mean, it's,
yeah,
you get to understand it from all sides of the equation rather than polarized, right? On both sides. I try to be,
yeah,
like that too, but yeah. So INTJ. So I think that's the observer type. That's like the yeah. So, but you'd have to officially, not that it means anything. It's just, intuitive thinking, judging, but then you've got people who are more empathetic and more feelings based. So when I heard you talking about, I observed, because I've been like that for a long time too, or maybe forever, where it was similar. I saw the party type, party lifestyle, and granted, I did too some of that in college and a little bit afterwards. But there is a bit of it with my personality to like peeling back and looking at the world from the outside in. So I got a sense of that from you too.
yeah. Oh, exactly. I think most of my life I felt like the ultimate outsider. I mean, so even as a kid, my dad was kind of one of those that believed children should be seen and not heard. And if I was seen or heard, it wasn't going to be pretty. So I usually just tried to keep my head down, keep out of the way, not be seen. Um, that saying, the tall poppy syndrome, like, don't stand out for any reason,
Interesting.
was
Yeah.
very, very much a self-preservation thing when I was growing up. Yeah.
So I don't know, it's a tricky subject, right? Because parenting back then was a completely different, mindset than it is now, for better or worse, right? In some ways, maybe better, but also many ways, many other ways, I get that too. But I don't know how deep we want to go down that rabbit hole before
It's
we go.
fine. Anything,
Yeah.
anywhere you want to go, I'm totally willing. So
Yeah. Um, so wait, so computer science, psychology, and then after that, working in tech, or how did that?
yeah, I got my first job in a direct mail marketing company, which was kind of frustrating because, I knew that the fruit of my efforts were just going to line people's trash cans. So that was a little disappointing. And I also, I had so much background from high school and college. Oh, well, one thing I forgot to mention was that during the summers in high school, one of the computer teachers just loaned me the keys to their new $3 million mini mainframe. And so every day I would walk 3 miles through the summer. It's like I'm not even in school anymore. I'd walk 3 miles over to our vocational center, and I would have this mainframe all to myself with the manuals. And I dug in deep. I could operate the thing. I could anything of the systems administration of that mainframe I knew how to do. And so that came in handy for jobs when I was in college too. But then when I got this first job, for some reason, because I had a college degree, they placed me as a I'm spacing out now what it's called. So I wasn't a programmer. It was hopefully you can edit this out when I have brain farts like this. um my gosh, I can't even think of what the heck my title was. How embarrassing.
But it wasn't programmer. It was something related
No.
to, it doesn't matter. It's
Why
just
am I spacing on that? That's like really annoying.
yeah,
Um,
but it's an insignificant detail. It's a title, right? You had a,
well, yeah. Well, okay. So let me just say, because my role wasn't one of a programmer, that when I had to interface with the programmers, I wrote like the specs for the programs, and then we would have a programmer that would do the coding. And the coding that they worked in was a very simplistic computer language that they created for themselves. It was super limited, but it would just do what they needed to do for the direct mail marketing. But our coders really thought they were the shit. It's like, we're programmers and you're just, oh, I was an analyst. That's a
okay,
systems analyst. That's what they call
gotcha.
it. And you're just a systems analyst. So, you don't know how to do this stuff. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is child's play, what you guys are doing. It was so frustrating that I got treated like an idiot, but I had way more of a background. So eventually I had to prove that the hard way, just by working with different people that were, well, how do I explain this? There were these two guys, Steve and Greg. I'm really going off in the weeds on this, but these guys were the gurus of our computer system, of our mainframe at that company. And they knew it. And they were really hardcore, and they were rude as heck to everybody else because everybody was so ignorant in their eyes, right? There's these little peon programmers, and they would always come to them with their major problems, and they would just be annoyed to no end. And one day my team had a problem, and so I had to come along with the programmers to go see Steve and Greg, kind of like the Wizards of Oz, right? These were the big guys behind the curtains. And I remember these guys were just like so dismissive. They wouldn't even look up at us. And one of them made some kind of reference to Happy Days, right? That was a big show at the time. Well, I think it was probably over at the time, but still in syndication at least. And so I just on intuition just threw out a line from Happy Days. And I remember Steve looking up from his desk at me like, and he says, "A monkey speaks." Like, what? And so and then he went back to what he was doing, and then he would do something else, and just things that I could identify with. And so I would just toss out a comment, and he would stop what he was doing and look at me. And now the programmers and my boss behind me were getting nervous because they're like, "Shut up, you're annoying him." But little did they know, he was like, "Wait a minute, what's up with this guy?" And so I caught his attention. We started talking later, and then he realized that I knew C and C++, which he did not know, and he really wanted to know. And he knew that I knew like these, desktop computers, which was a whole new thing for him, and he was fascinated by. Anyway, we hit it off, and that was really all I needed to get in. Um, And then I was able to write bigger programs and get into more and more stuff there. So, yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that story, but it just kind of cracks me up. So,
Yeah, no, that's great. So then going from there and with the coding with that was the mail company, right? So
yeah.
what was the next step and what was the plan? Like, I mean, it sounds like you just followed the path of, well, this is what I enjoy doing. I'm just gonna get a degree in what I enjoy, and then I'm gonna get a job doing kind of, some of the coding stuff and what I enjoy. But then was there a plan behind it, or it's just, ride the wave and see where, coding and programming and takes me?
Yeah. I mean, I was just kind of riding the wave, really. I knew, from high school that I wanted to get into computers because it would be something that would pay well and would be really interesting. But then I sort of found my niche at that company once I was accepted and allowed to do things. I started automating our systems. So I developed this program that ended up doing what we had a whole team of ladies they were in charge of the batch operation of one of our biggest database fulfillment systems. And I mean, I realized that all the stuff that they were doing at the keyboard was just a very repetitive tasks. And I knew how to use higher level language application programming interface to simulate what they were doing using their logic and just completely automate that whole thing. And I talked to my boss about it because I had the idea for it, but I was really concerned that I might put these folks out of work. And he's like, no, don't worry about that. We can find plenty of other things for them to do. So if you think you can do that, go for it. And so I did. And so um, going back to Steve and Greg, they were really big into old sitcoms. There was a old TV show called That Girl, starring Marlo Thomas.
Before my time.
Yeah, well, it was kind of before mine too. I vaguely remembered it, but they knew it really well. And apparently the star of the show, Marlo Thomas, her name was Anne Marie. She had a boyfriend by the name of excuse me, there goes my voice again, Donald Hollinger. And so she wouldn't refer to him as her boyfriend, she would refer to him as her current date. So whenever you're coding things, often you needed the date in your program. And so they would always say, hey, what's the current date? And somebody would say Donald Hollinger as a joke rather than saying the date. Anyway, they decided to give me I had to create a artificial login for this entity that I was creating. And so they gave it the name of Donald Hollinger. And so this thing became quite big. It ended up doing all kinds of automation for the company. And as a result, what used to take a week for this batch processing was brought down to a single day. And then there were other systems that set up the first bulletin board system. If you can remember those things, you used to be able to dial up into and be able to, post things and get into forums and such. I used that technology to be able to take our data fulfillment, which used to come out on magnetic tape and then get FedExed to the customer who bought the list of mailing addresses and things from us. Instead of having to ship that magnetic tape, which took lots of time, I implemented this bulletin board system, and now, they could get it immediately. All they had to do is just dial in as soon as the batch was finished and download it. And then there was just lots of other automations that built on top of that. So it kept getting this process down from a week to like a day to 4 hours to about an hour and a half. And so I made a good name for myself anyway through that.
So efficiency, that's the,
Yeah,
name of the game, right?
yeah.
And so I guess you stayed at that company for a long time.
About 10 years. Yeah.
All right. And then throughout that process, still health and fitness was a major focus, or how did that go? It wasn't.
No, no. I wouldn't call it a major focus. It was something I was interested in. It was something I did. Again, I didn't really know what I was doing. I mean, I thought I did. I would go to GNC and I would walk the aisles and go, oh yeah, that looks like an interesting supplement. I think I'll take that one. So I bought lots of supplements and I just had no clue if they were doing anything for me or if I needed them or even if they were harming me, I didn't know. So yeah.
So when did the health mindset get to the point where it's like, I'm going to start tracking, I'm going to start trying to optimize, as many biomarkers as possible. When did that come into play as a major focus?
So through the course of working in that job and doing the automation that I was doing, I had to get a lot of data out of things. At one point, I was responsible for doing both, well, it was performance tuning for an operating system, a database, and applications. So I had to get lots of data out of each of those environments, put them into Excel, graph them out, and then as we tweaked various, like buffers and, other little nerd knobs of these environments, to see how those had an effect upon the processing. Was it getting better? Was it getting worse? So, well, I guess they would have called, now they would probably call that fuck around and find out, but that's,
Yeah,
yeah,
I gotta put that on a t-shirt, but yeah.
right. But I mean, that's really the only thing you could do back then, to be able to reverse engineer a program, or to like do performance tuning. You had to play around with the variables and see what would result. Kind of like figuring out what's inside of a black box. That was your only option. I started realizing through this that, our bodies are very much a very complex system. And it frustrated me that we didn't have any user's manual for it, and that I didn't really have any good data on what my buffers were, or my inputs and outputs, which is one of the things I love about your channel, because you are so excellent at controlling all of your inputs and being able to figure out what your results.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
I try to. It's not a perfect system, sometimes things get in the way, but which is annoying, but
I want to digress just slightly, just to praise you, because I watch a lot of YouTube videos and I listen to a lot of podcasts, but when yours come on, I stop everything that I'm doing and I'm
cool.
glued
Thank you,
to
David.
that screen, and I'm doing screenshots of all your different slides and stuff, and fascinating.
The thing is,
Absolutely
your coding experience, you could probably do what I do infinitely better. I'm like, it's funny, the coding guy, Greg and Steve, and he's like, the monkey speaks. I feel like a monkey playing with stats. It's just simple correlations, sometimes I get criticized by like hardcore machine learning types and Bayesian. I don't know where to even, I don't have that coding experience. They're like, you should do it like this. And I'm like, I get what you're saying, but this simple approach, most of my biomarkers are better than where they were, right? So
Yeah.
there's probably a higher level to analyze the data, but you can go far on just simple correlations, and but I try. It's an imperfect system. For me, it's like I don't want any praise. I'm 70 plus years away from that. That's the way I see it. If I can really do what I think I can do, and my genetics don't get in the way, then maybe I was onto something, but maybe I just squeezed the orange of, so my dad's brother died at 51. He had a stroke 48, and then that's it 3 years later. So I don't know that I don't have those genetics, and I'm just milking as much of the orange as I can. Maybe that's 75. I don't know. I hope not, but all we can do is maximize, based on our genetics, right? So
Yeah. Well, if you're ever looking for beta testers for things that you're doing, sign me up.
yeah, I appreciate that. So we're building an app, and as we're talking, I'm like, fuck, you could probably build an even better app. That's the thing. So
I'm
and
limited in the environments that I know how to code in, and coding on phones, that's very foreign to me. I've tried. It's the development environment is just, it's huge. It's like learning a whole new world for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
All
So I
right.
feel a little left out of that, but
For now, I mean,
for
right?
now, for
Yeah, yeah,
now.
for
Yeah,
now.
now that I'm retired, I might actually have some time to dedicate to that. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah,
But most of my automation I'd like to use in Excel, because it's powerful. I can crunch a lot of data and then get good results that I can visually figure out what's what from that. So
yeah. Same. I mean, same. But I'm primitive compared. You've got actual coding skills. So when I sat down to try to learn to code a few years ago, I don't have I've said this before in other places, but I don't have the brain. I just don't. I can't like. I watch all the videos and I practice it, and then it doesn't go exactly how they said. Then I get frustrated. I'm literally like the monkey pounding on the table. Like, why doesn't this work? So I can only focus on what I'm good at, right? So,
well, if you're ever looking for Excel macros for something to make something easy, throw something over the wall at me and say, here, can you do this and set it up for me? And I'll send it to you.
cool. Thanks, Dave. All right. So wait. So when did that kick in? So like, at what age did the bulb go off? Because for me, I had a light bulb moment. But for you, when was there an age that you were just like, human body is the same way. I can start, maybe I can start to optimize my health if I can, play with the inputs and, and outputs.
Well, that was the frustrating part because I came upon that way too early. I tried to get, data from my doctor. No way. No way. And they didn't have anything that you could buy online like they do now. So yeah, I would go see my doctor and I'd want to know, like, I'd ask him, I want to know what like my testosterone is, my estrogen, my estradiol. And he just starts laughing. He's like, wait a minute, estrogen, estradiol, you don't have those. You're a man. He just thought I was a complete idiot, right? Yeah, you don't need those. And I'm like thinking, wow, even I know more than this guy. This is kind of scary. Yeah. So, and then when he would run something, he would run like just a single marker that didn't tell you, what's going on in reference to other things. So totally useless data, completely useless. So
So
it
wait,
wasn't probably for maybe another decade before these individual self-help kind of tests became available. And then I really had something I could work with.
so it was always interested when you'd go for like a yearly physical. It's just that the tech and the doctors at the time. I mean, I I don't know if I've ever mentioned this publicly, but like in in Texas. So I moved here from Texas and I was testing, basically begging my doctor at the time to measure like 4 times a year, just the CBC, chem panel, whatever the standards.
Yeah.
And so when I moved here, I wanted to do the same thing. And like you said, it was before the age, I mean, granted, like 15 years ago of order everything online, go to the lab, like that didn't exist. So um, one of the doctors here wrote in my file, like suffers from anxiety. Didn't tell me to my face, just wrote that down. And then she
Because you
left
asked for data.
because I asked for data and I wanted to be proactive and get ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And I was even like, look, and, I'm not trying to, flex, not trying to do any of that, but I was like, I'm a scientist over here, like, and they probably hear so many delusional people. She probably put me in that bin, So anyway, like she left, the new doctor came, and then he asked me, he was like, how's your anxiety going? He's like, wait, what? I don't generally suffer from anxiety. I mean, occasionally something at work will stress me out, but I don't have an anxiety disorder where it's chronic. And I'm like, so anyway, just that mindset of if you want to try to optimize your health by measuring more often than once a year or whatever, you must suffer from some personality disorder or anxiety disorder. It's just crazy to me. So
Oh, yeah. I guess, and I guess if you had something they couldn't diagnose, they would just say it was all in your head too. So
that's terrible, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of gaslighting of people.
So for you, it kicked in about 15 years ago, or when would you say
Oh,
that?
no, that would have been in my 30s. So that would have been, yeah.
So they weren't giving
Keep
you
forgetting
your
how
own.
old I actually am. So that would have been more than 30 years ago.
It doesn't seem that old though. I mean, it just seems like a time, a number. I don't know. It's crazy.
It does. I
So
look at myself like I'm still 20. So it blows my mind when I'm with actual 20 and 30-year-olds because I'm like, wait a minute, you don't know these bands? You don't know this TV show that I'm referring to? It just doesn't compute.
yeah, my 15-year-old will like pull up a TikTok on some like 3-second hook on a song. And I'm like, you don't even realize the original was whatever. And then,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
So you were trying to get blood test data from your doctor, and then they just weren't giving it to you, up to 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But then was there ever a time when you would get that your blood test data from the doctor, and then you started recording it?
Yeah. Yeah. I lost a lot of that, unfortunately. I know in my spreadsheet, I started including um, the earliest I could go back and find. But, most of the stuff they give you is hard copy. There was no email versions of things that you could take that data out of anything other than having to type it back in yourself. So it was very frustrating.
Yeah. So what would you say? 15 years? Like what was I don't remember the earliest data that you had.
Um, yeah, I don't either. I'm thinking probably around 2012 is when I really started my deep dive. So I would have been just turning 50. And I know I've told this story in a couple other podcasts, but maybe somebody new will be hearing this. I was just starting my first marathon, and I'd heard on a podcast something about telomeres, and I didn't know what they were, but I was fascinated. And apparently they get shorter as you get older. So I thought, there's a test for that. I think I'd like to take that test because I'm certain it's going to come back and tell me I have the telomeres of a 20-year-old, right? Because I felt pretty good. I felt way better at 50 than I did at 30. And a lot of that had to do with me finding P90X at probably about age 45. I'm a skeptic about everything. So when I saw the infomercials for P90X, I'm thinking, well, that's complete bullshit. You know, that's just dumb. But then the more I watched it, I thought, well, wait a minute, they've actually got some really well thought out routines and plans. Anytime I'd ever seen anybody in the gym, they didn't really have a system. They didn't really know what they were doing. They're just slinging some weights around and hoping for the best. Whereas I, being the geek that I am, would go to the gym and with my clipboard, and I would go on like all the Nautilus equipment, the machines and stuff, and I would write down my weight, the number of reps, and I would chart it out. Didn't even have Excel back then. It was some other program I can't think of the name of. It was the precursor to Excel, but I would graph this stuff out and do little charts to see if I was improving sufficiently. You know, anyway, so when I saw P90X, I thought, all right, yeah, I'm gonna give that a shot just to prove that it doesn't work. So I did everything that they specified right to the letter. And I was kind of amazed because like 30 days in, I'm starting to see some chest developing. I'm seeing my biceps and triceps were looking great again. I mean, high school, I was huge, but after high school, getting into college and getting busy with work, I let all that go. I didn't have that spare time just to hang out in the backyard and sling weights around. So I lost a lot of that. But I started seeing some real good definition and tone and starting to get cut. And other people started to notice too. So that was a really nice thing. And I was like, hey, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. So 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, my confidence completely changed. I would go out to the bar with friends that were, fairly good looking guys. They used to get all the attention. And one of my best friends at the time, slightly arrogant, used to think all the girls were looking at him, which they probably were to his his defense. But I remember there was a girl on the dance floor that was like looking at the both of us, and he assumed it was him. So he started to go out to do the little white boy shuffle and get in there and dance with her. And she's like totally rebuffs him, and he's like, "What's going on with this?" So he comes back, stands next to me again, and she's smiling and looking at us, and he's like,
Mhm.
he still can't comprehend that she was looking at me, not him. And I couldn't comprehend it either because I'm thinking, I'm noticeable now. I was used to being completely invisible.
Yeah.
Again, from childhood on through, most of my upbringing through high school, more of a wallflower, I guess, than anything else. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so P90X completely changed my life. So again, now, so I'm at 50. I'm looking good. I'm feeling good, better than I had in my whole life. I do this telomere test. Comes back and tells me I have the telomeres of a 68-year-old, and I was age 50. So now I'm shocked, thinking, what am I missing? I think that I'm doing all the right things, at least by what we know right now to be the right things, taking all the right supplements, doing the right exercises. I was I was tracking my sleep. Dave Asprey loves to talk about this old sleep tracker that he used to wear that attached on a headband. It was called the Zeo sleep band. I had one of those, so I was always recording my data off that. Loved that thing. It was brilliant because it was really just picking up the waves directly from your brain rather than, off of a ring or a wristband and trying to figure out by an algorithm what, are you in REM? Are you in deep sleep? I still don't know how they figure that out from this stuff. But anyway, um, I've digressed in so many different directions here, but um, I thought I was doing everything right. So then I really had to dig in and find out what is it. I seem to be healthy. I seem to have fitness, but there's this whole longevity piece that apparently I'm not doing very well at. So how does that fit in? What is it? What do I need to do? So I started doing Dr. Google to find everything I could about telomeres and what there might be to make them longer. There really wasn't a lot known about it at that time. I think it was a couple of years later they started learning about telomerase by studies of cancer cells and how they tend to produce their own and they can seem to be immoral. And then a few years after that, they developed the first telomerase activators. I think it was TAM 818, the Bill Andrews product. And that was ridiculously expensive, still is. So I didn't jump on it right away because there was no way I could afford that. But over time, I kept thinking, well, I'm gonna have to bite the bullet if I really think this is gonna do the trick, and living a good long life is important to me, then well, I'm gonna have to spend the money and see what happens, see if it works. So I did, and I would retest every year to that same company until they went defunct. And I started seeing my telomeres, getting longer and longer, which was wonderful. Well, you've probably seen from some of my data, I recently shortened them again.
But there are two different measures. One is, so true diagnostics is the epigenetic estimation, even though that may be a better measure, that's very debatable, not much data. But so wait, so that gets to the idea of, kind of so I think you improved your telomere length in part from the telomerase activator, but then also, I think you mentioned like you changed your diet. That was the impetus to change your diet. You just started eating more clean, and, or
Well,
was it just,
before that, I ended up doing a consultation with this company because they offered that as part of your test results. And I started explaining to them, well, they asked me to explain my lifestyle. And I thought, well, I knew lifestyle had something to do with it. I just didn't realize how much it did. So I started explaining that, I do P90X, I'm training for my first marathon. I have a very, very stressful job. It goes from like 0 to 60 in nothing flat. And I'm also taking care of my two elderly parents who are battling cancer at the same time. And as I'm explaining this, the guy's like, whoa, whoa, wait, stop, stop. We've seen this before. We've seen it in people who have really, like, they're type A people, have really stressful jobs. The stress shortens your telomeres. We've seen it in endurance athletes who put on high miles and just, are abusing themselves basically, through the stress that they're putting in their bodies. Um, and you're doing P90X on top of that, which, is another, you're really, really doing yourself some damage there. And we've seen it in caretakers, people that are dealing with parents and having to change diapers and all the stress that comes with that. You've got the trifecta going on. So it's no wonder that your telomeres are so short. And so they recommended that I start trying to find ways to mitigate my stress levels. And they recommended things like yoga and meditation. And I started laughing because those are things I really used to do. I used to do those in my early 20s, like from teens to 20s and even through college. Yeah, all through college. And I just forgot about because once I got working in my day job, things get lost when real life kicks in. They just sort of fall on the floor. So I had to pick those back up again and really start focusing on my recovery, more recovery than just hard charging forward, 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 which I'm having to relearn again now for the same reason, because I've been putting a lot of stress on myself. And I think that's had a shortening effect on my telomeres. In fact, I know it has. Yeah. So
so then that gets to the idea of exercise prescription, right? Because, right, and I know I've mentioned this a billion times, but, exercise is well known to increase average, but, by an, life expectancy increase of up to about 8 years. But, that gets us to like 80-ish. So, when you consider that only, it's like calorie restriction, at least in rats, if you calorie restrict them, that increases their, so if you exercise train rats, no CR, increases average lifespan, just like in people. But if you calorie restrict them, no exercise, they live even longer, both average and maximal. So, and when you calorie restrict and exercise train, there's no synergistic effect. So it gets to, there's something about exercise that's great for health span and you know, living a little bit longer, but then it's probably chronic stress, which goes to exercise prescription. What is the optimal exercise dose that can get us even longer, a longer health span, not just that 8-year average life expectancy increase? So how do you balance that? Because for me, it's like heart rate variability, resting heart rate are great insight into stress, right? So you could have super recovered data for heart rate variability, resting heart rate, and minimize stress completely. But then what's your VO2 max? What's your muscle strength? So how do you see the balance, or how do you now evaluate the balance between how often you exercise, for how long, at what intensity, versus these measures of stress, whether it's telomere length or HRV, resting heart rate? How do you integrate that?
Yeah, now when I'm doing training for a marathon or half marathon, I should just say half marathon because I'm not doing any fulls anymore. That's way too much. Um, if I'm still doing P90X at all during that, then I'm doing the run training where a cardio day would have been in P90X. So it's more of a cross training, and I'm making them more synergistic rather than trying to
Add.
cram them both in at the same time. I found that the importance is being able to come down from the stress. The stress is a good thing, but then don't just replace it with another stress and keep going throughout the day.
Yep.
You've got to, it's how quickly you can come back down from the stress you just put yourself under. And that seems to be the magic sauce for me. If I go out and do a run, come back in and get my mind on some happy things, and I'm not just trying to charge through the rest of my day or go do a bunch of yard work on top of that, which again, I had to relearn because I just did that a lot lately. Um,
So it's almost like titrating downward. If you have a high activity, high stress, because exercise is a stressor. I mean, no exercise, no stressor, but it's hormetic, right? So as you know, so I guess if you have a high activity, high stress day, then you try to titrate it downward for a couple of days until you're more fully recovered, whether it's general feel, or is that how
well,
you're?
even more immediate. So if I go out and I do a run, I like to follow that up with a sauna right afterwards because sauna is pretty synergistic with exercise, and it helps to, keep the growth hormone high. But in the sauna, I'm either like meditating or I'm watching a Netflix that just completely takes me out of my head and entertains me. And so I can just feel myself relaxing and coming down from that. And then a nice long shower, and then maybe do some recovery. Like I have Normatec compression boots. I'll put those on. I have an amp coil that I'll set on my chest at the same time. And now I've even got a brain tap that I'll put on. So I'll be doing the brain work and stacking all three of those together. And I just bliss out in that too. So
See, this is why you're underrated. People don't know. They just think, oh, the dude is ripped. 62, he's ripped. He's got a epigenetics pace of aging that's as good as the best, some of the best. And then you start talking about all those things. People don't know like that. You're underrated. I'm not doing that stuff. I haven't evolved to that level. Um, so wait, so if have you looked at, so some people have the physiology where they'll chronically adapt, higher training volume, HRV, resting heart rate, will continue to improve, right? I mean, granted, maybe there's an upper limit, but it's dramatically a higher volume upper limit compared to somebody else, right? So
yeah,
especially some elite athletes. I've seen some endurance athletes that have really bad HRV resting heart rate, but can bike for 40 miles or whatever they, doing triathlons and all that too. So do you have the physiology where your body will always adapt to, well, granted, the stress, telomere shortening being one example, but at least for me, I can't, if I do a 90-minute workout, P90X is what, 45 minutes or so?
it depends on the workout and the day. It can be longer. Yeah, it can be like an hour and a half.
Yeah. So hour and a half workout. If I'm not like totally relaxed, I mean, just like maybe some walking, if I'm doing yoga, anything, even
Yeah.
yard work, that's going to slow my recovery for the next workout. Unfortunately, I don't have the physiology that, for whatever reason, I don't know if I can biohack around that and figure out that recipe, why my recovery would be so much slower. But it seems like you're able to grind, not grind necessarily, but how many P90X workouts per week?
Well, how many should I do versus how many do I actually
No,
do?
no, no. How many are you actually doing?
Okay. At least 3 solid workouts a week.
And that cumulatively is how many minutes would you say?
Oh, so I mean, each one of those would be about an hour and a half.
Yeah. So you've got more in the high volume, high training, and that's not including yard work, yoga, you know, uh, everything else, all the other
Yeah, the
activities.
Carol
So
bike.
the Carol bike, my gosh. So
Yeah.
yeah,
The Carol bike's relatively new for me. I just got that last November, so it's not been a whole year yet. And I gotta say, I don't want to make this a Carol bike commercial because
yeah.
I am an affiliate. I gotta be honest with you on that. But I I was shocked by the Carol bike when I saw it at the biohacking conference several years ago. I'm thinking, nice gimmick, you know. how can that really do anything? But then I would hear more and more of my favorite podcasters really talking about the benefits that they saw from it. And I'm thinking, all right, hopefully these guys aren't just trying to market to me, you know. I'm hoping that they're really being honest about their experiences with this. So if there's so many of them that are agreeing about what they're getting from this, then yeah, maybe I should really give this a serious try. And so I bought one and I'd been using it pretty consistently. But the thing about the Carol bike is I never felt like I was getting any better at it. You know, I'd kind of beat myself up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I really suck. I would look at my leaderboard scores on it, you know, and I'm maybe the middle of the pack on the leaderboard. I'm thinking, gosh, I thought I was in good shape. Why am I so bad compared to this whole top half of this group? And I'm imagining the bottom half are like, you know, 80 and 90-year-olds on this, which may or may not be true, but that's, you know, kind of beating myself up mentally about it. So I would keep at it anyway, but I didn't really think I was getting any benefits, only because it's AI driven. So every time you perform well, you know, the next time you do it, it increases that resistance just a little bit more. And it just keeps giving you a little bit harder each time. And so I feel like I'm doing exactly the same thing always, but I'm not. I'm actually improving, you know, as time goes. But it's so gradual that I didn't notice. And the way I saw it shocked me. I every year I do the American Lung Association's Fight for Air Climb, and that involves, well, at least here in Detroit, it involves running Comerica Park, the stadium, all around the stadium. So you're running up and down all the bleachers all the way around the park. And every year I would train for that just because it's, you know, it's a hard event for me anyway. A lot of stair work, it's a lot of huffing and puffing. But this year I didn't get to it. I was, you know, in Italy for 30 days. Immediately coming back from that, I started working in my attic, which is the worst time of year to be changing out old insulation and putting in new. But I did, and I was pushing really hard up there, right up until the day of the event. And I thought, well, this is going to suck because I didn't prepare for this. But when the day came and I did the event, I had fun. I felt good. And I didn't think a whole lot about it until I looked at my scores and my times, you know, afterwards and realized that I just did that whole thing faster than any year prior, like by a pretty good margin. And I was a minute shy of placing first in my age group, which if I'd had any clue, I would have pressed. I mean, I really would have tried because if first had been in my reach, I would have went for it. So I was shocked. I didn't know why. I didn't know what I could attribute that to. The Carol bike was not really in the back of my mind at that point because I didn't think the Carol bike was doing anything. And then later, I was training for Mount Kilimanjaro, and which is an event I didn't get to do because of the crowd
Yep.
strike thing.
Yep.
But I did a lot of training for that, and I had to jump into the middle of the training program again because I was in Italy. I was working in the attic. I wasn't doing the training at the beginning of the training program. So I didn't gradually build up from, you know, 30 minutes of running to a mile of running to 3 miles of running. I jumped into our training program right when we did our first 6 miler. So I went out and did my first 6 mile run. And again, looking at my results of that, 6 miles untrained this year was faster than my 6 miles at the end of the training season last year, fully trained. And I'm like, wait, what? What? And then at that point, I realized it's got to be the Carol bike because that's the only real training, if you want to call it that, that I've been doing. And just shocked at how much that's improved my whole cardiovascular system. So I'm sold. I don't mind doing little commercials like that for Carol Bike because I'm impressed. And
Yeah.
it's not often I'm impressed with stuff like that.
I know it sounds like a commercial, but apologies. It's a part of your approach, so I'm curious about these things. And I have no affiliation to Carol Bike, so I just want to know more. But so what? It's just a standard like stationary bike, but then you program it with. I mean, are you wearing a heart rate monitor?
Yes.
And then
Yep.
it's
Heart rate strap. And then it's got a, well, it's like a tablet that's attached to the front of it. You could use it for Peloton, I think, if you wanted to. There's fat burner things that you can do, but I've been using the 2 20-second all out sprints. That's their hardest, you know, the beyond their intermediate training program. And that's the one I've been using and seeing great results with.
And then, so the Caro bike, so you'll program it to do a certain time, a certain heart rate zone. How do
Oh, yeah, there's no programming. I just choose this fixed 2 20-second all-out sprints. And
you,
so you get in, you start pedaling for, I think maybe it's 2 minutes to begin with. And it's there's like a breath pacer that you see on the screen. So they're showing you your heart rate, they're showing you your cadence, and then they're also showing you your I guess it would be your power output. And so you're supposed to be keeping your power output like under 20 watts. And you're just following this breath pacer. So you're having you breathe in and then breathe out. And then right about the time the clock counts down to like 3 seconds, then the screen turns red and you're like imagining the tiger that's chasing you. And now you just start pedaling as fast as you can. And you've got 20 seconds to do that for, which, I mean, 20 seconds doesn't sound like long
no.
until you're doing that all out.
Yeah.
And by 15 seconds, you're like, is this ever going to end? I'm dying here. And so, but it gets progressively harder and harder and harder until the very end. You could barely move these pedals. And then you've got another 2 minutes of a breath pacer and to bring your heart rate back down before the next one.
So 20 seconds all out, and then you said 2 minutes of
2 minutes in
slow.
between of like just recovery rest.
And then how many cycles? How many cycles of that?
Two.
Oh, just two. So it's
Yeah.
I mean it's a 5 minute workout.
It works out to be 10. So there's 2 in the beginning, 2 in the middle, and 2 in the end cool down. 2, 4, 6. And then okay. Well, it's less than 10 minutes, let's put it that
Yeah.
way.
All right.
But I know it's more than 5.
But short and intense. I mean, that's the thing. It's not an hour of, ass kicking,
Right.
going. All right. So how do you set up your workouts for the week? I mean, it sounds like you're doing a variety of, the yoga and the yard work and the Carol bike and the P90X. I mean, do you have a set schedule where you're like, on this day I'm gonna do, like, how do you make those decisions? And then also, do you pay any attention to heart rate variability, resting heart rate in guiding your training? So
I should.
hmm.
I should, but honestly, I haven't been. And I think that's probably a flaw because I'm not making use of that data.
I mean, so if you don't subjectively feel bad and you're, so I think it would be bad if you're like mentally ground down and then you force yourself through a workout. Probably if you're mentally ground down, probably the metrics of stress are going to be really bad. So I think pushing through that would be bad. But if you feel okay and
But what I
train,
find really weird is that when I'm tired and I have a run that's scheduled for that day according to the training program, I'm thinking, "Ugh, the last thing I want to do is go for a run right now." That's usually the best runs I have.
hmm,
I can't explain it. There's times when I feel great and I think I'm going to go out and crush that run, and I suck. So the whole mental mindset of like, how do I feel that day is completely reversed for me. I don't know if it's that way with everybody else. So that's why I've learned not to pay attention to how do I feel that day, because
yeah,
that usually it lies to me.
yeah. And the proof is in the pudding because, like you said, what was it, your time this year for what was it, the mile time or the half marathon time was better this year, and you weren't even
Six
trying to
six
break
mile run. Yeah.
6 months. Yeah. So, I mean, if it was something where you're grinding through it and grinding the gears, I'd imagine you'd see that it's perpetually getting worse over time. But that's the overtraining effect. But you don't see that. So
Right.
you probably have not athlete genetics. I mean, you know,
Well, it's funny you say that because my grandfather, my dad's father, used to be an incredibly athletic guy, from what I've heard. When I knew him, he was just this really hunched over old man with these big pop bottle glasses and smoking a pipe and never got out of his chair. So that's the grandfather I knew. But back in his heyday, he had trophies for softball, he had trophies for bowling. He was good at anything that he tried. He used to go into bars and he would bet people that he could take a broomstick and hold it in both hands and jump through it and then jump through it back the opposite way without letting go. He could do it. He would bet people that he could go down with one arm, like do a one arm push up to the floor and pick up a matchstick with his lips and then come back up again. Right. And so he was a heavy, heavy drinker. So he would make these bets for people to buy him booze and he would always win.
It's
So
almost like the superpower. It's like Unbreakable, wasn't he doing some of that? Did you see that movie Unbreakable
yeah,
Kimmy
I
Schmidt?
did. Yeah, I think, and he was. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, the
Interesting.
funny thing now about all that is my grandfather, being a mean drunk, was, I guess he was rotten to my dad when it came to like throwing a ball around, because he wouldn't just underhand soft pitch a ball to my dad when he was little. He would fastball it and bean my dad, like hit my dad with the ball. And so my dad like wanted nothing to do with sports at all, just completely opposed to them. So when I grew up, my dad wasn't into sports. He didn't want us to have anything to do with sports. He didn't teach us to do anything with sports. So, I mean, I never learned how to play baseball, basketball, barely could play catch. I started throwing around a football with friends at recess. And so that's where I got, started doing it with both arms. I got pretty good throwing it with either hand. So first we threw like girls doing it with their opposite hand, which I shouldn't say because there's a lot of girls that can throw a football way better than me right now. But back then that was the term, right? You're throwing like a girl. Um, yeah, but pretty soon after practicing that enough, I got just as good with either hand. So yeah, I always wanted to get into sports, but my parents wouldn't let me. I even wanted to do track because I had friends that were in track in high school. But my parents said, no, if you've got time for an extracurricular activity like that, then you have time to get a job to save money for college. So
Mm.
wasn't able to.
Yeah, I mean, so the one sport I think that you didn't mention, I think health and fitness, I see that as a sport or it's athletic activity, right? So I mean, you could make the and I'm a big sports fan, baseball, basketball, MMA. I appreciate all of it, right? So um, you could make the argument that the most important sport is taking care of your health and your fitness and being active. But so that brings up the question, like, do you have any ideas or plans for competing in masters competitions, whether it's uh, half marathons or squat, bench press, deadlift? I mean,
No, no,
none of
because
that.
I'm not good at any of those.
I disagree. I think well, granted, I mean you're not specifically training, right? You're training more of the general fitness circuit training kind of with the P90X is more circuit training, right? The whole time
Yeah,
you're moving
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah. There's weight bearing days, and then the cardio days would be like extreme yoga, Pilates, like um, there's Kempo X, so it's like Kempo karate. There's plyometrics or jump training. I mean, they've got some really great cross training. So you're always working different muscle groups. I always tell people that have tried it, they say, oh, yeah, I tried that. I couldn't do that. That was way too extreme. I always tell them, look, if you can get past the first 2 weeks of that, yeah, you're going to be sore everywhere because you're going to feel muscles you never knew you had. But after those first 2 weeks are over, your body starts to acclimate to it and it gets easier, it gets better.
yeah,
And then you
definitely.
start seeing the gains. But it's hard to stick through that first 2 weeks. And I get why people drop out, but
So the P90X is videotapes. I mean, you're just put or no, I
yeah,
don't know, videotapes.
yeah.
Listen to me. I mean, it's like there are no
So you
videotapes anymore.
DVDs.
DVDs. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So you asked me, how do I know which workout to do on
yeah.
which days?
Yep.
The cool thing is, P90X came with a 14-day plan. So there is a different DVD for each day of 14 days. So, and that repeats. So you never really get tired of doing the same thing over and over again. And your muscles don't, you get you keep the muscle confusion going because you're always doing something different. And so I have that schedule, and being the coder that I am, I have this big Excel. I can't even call it a spreadsheet. It's a full-blown application that I wrote in Excel that will give me my schedule for the day, like the workout that I'm doing for the day. And I have all the DVDs burned onto the hard drive of this particular laptop. And I've got it all backed up somewhere too in case the laptop crashes. But so the schedule, I get up in the morning, I go down to the basement, the laptop's already open, and on the screen it shows me the workout that I'm scheduled to do for that day. So I don't even have to think about which one I'm going to do. It's just the next one that's on the list. And then I, push the button and it'll play on my TV that workout for me, which I don't always need to play because I pretty much have it memorized now.
Yeah.
So, but there are things that, you know, that might be timed, like there's slow motion 3-in-1 push-ups where you'll do, for the count of 4, you'll be pushing up, and then the count of 4, you'll be pushing down. And you'll do that for a certain number of them. You'll do them wide to start with. and you'll do them narrow, and then you'll do them military style. And that I like to do with the video because it helps pace me. So I don't have to try to figure out how fast or how slow I need to go. I can just go with the group and the DVD. So
So that's every day. It's a 14-day cycle, basically. There are no rest days in P90X. I mean,
there
or
are, there are, yeah, it's like Sundays are usually on the schedule as a rest day, but their rest days they're not really rest. They're more of a recovery day. So there would be a thing like yoga, a certain type of like a yoga would be that. Core synergistics, I think, is one of the recovery days. So you're still actively doing stuff, but it's very low impact and slow motion stuff.
but then you add in the Carol bike and, yard work. So how do you, it's just whenever you feel like, how do you integrate the other activities too into the approach? Or it's just, I like doing it, I'm going to do it today, or I feel great today, or I don't feel great. How do you integrate?
There's days when I know that I've got hard yard work coming up that I'll skip the workout. But then there's other days where I'm too bullheaded and I think I can do both. I'll do the workout first and then I'll push through the day of doing the yard work. And by the end of the day, I'm wiped, totally wiped, which feels great. And I sleep pretty good after that, as long as I don't, up to a point. I mean, there's still some of those days when I was doing the workouts and then going up in the attic and working on that. Or again, going out and trimming the bushes and, cutting the grass. There are times when I would get in bed and then I couldn't sleep because my mind is still racing. I'm still like super tense, so there is that happy sweet spot there. I don't, I'm not always good at finding it because I'm one of those hard chargers. I guess I just push too much.
Yeah. So what time of the day? Is it first thing in the morning? Is it early afternoon? When is the best time for you?
So when I was working, I am retired now as of last September. So it's almost a year now. When I was working, it was super easy to know when to do it because I only had a certain number of minutes that were spare or available during the day. So I had to get it in the morning first thing, or I might be able to go do it in exercise snacks. So I'd start it first thing in the morning. I'd get maybe partway through, come take a conference call. As soon as the conference call ended, run back downstairs, do a few more things, come back, do another call, or do some work. And I was just finishing off the rest of it in pieces and piecemeal throughout the rest of the day. Now that I've been retired, I don't have that discipline, that forced discipline. So I'm finding it really difficult to
Mm.
stick to the same routines because now I can do something else. I can go look at personal email. I can do an interview with somebody. I can go run and do a blood test. So, now I don't have to, like, fasting blood tests. I could do it 11 o'clock if I want to. I don't have to do it super early in the morning. So that tends to mess up my schedule a little bit just because I can.
So it sounds like it's more a matter of getting in the work, not necessarily what time of day. It's just you're trying to get it in now, granted, with the discipline versus, when
Yeah,
you're not retired. But yeah, but you still try to get it in every day and follow the itinerary. It's not a set time.
right.
Uh, yeah, interesting. So so what about sleep timing? Are you aiming for the same time and day, or is that just, you know,
I'm laughing because I've been kicking my own butt lately because my sleep timing has been terrible. Because I keep thinking I've been working harder and more now than when I did when I had a job, which seems bizarre to say, but it's because of these, interviews and the
yeah,
preparations and doing different affiliate type deals, planning trips. I've been going to lots of conferences. I've got lots more testing planned. In fact, coming up here on like the 3rd of September. I don't know when this is going to air, but I'm going to be going out to LA. So I'm going for the Rad Fest conference. I'm excited for that. When I go, I'm going to get a Pronuvo full body scan or full body MRI. I'm going to Joy Kong's clinic
yeah,
for stem cell treatment. And I'm scheduled to meet Brian, which will be interesting.
nice. We're
So
gonna record it. I'm sure he's gonna make a video.
yeah, I don't know how that's really going to go. I've got somebody coming with me that I'm going to have using my camera. In fact, she's the one that set up the meeting between Brian and I, because she works with Brian. And so I'm gonna ask her to maybe take a couple of pictures because I don't know how that's gonna go. Yeah.
So are we going to see a YouTube channel, a Dave Pascoe YouTube channel?
I don't know. To be honest with you, that sounds like way more work than I really want to do,
Hmm.
because I keep picturing myself, I'm retired now, supposedly, even though it feels like I'm transitioning into an entirely new career, which I'm not opposed to. It's just foreign to me. So that's probably why it's been a little more stressful, because it's out of my wheelhouse. Talking, most of my friends could care less about any biohacking stuff. So I never, ever really get to speak to them about this stuff. So just the fact that anyone out there is interested, the fact that you want to record this and put it out on YouTube just still blows my mind. So I don't feel like I'm really accustomed to doing this yet. I feel like I might be getting a little better with practice, but so whether I want to do this or not and create a YouTube, it just sounds like way more work than I actually want to do. I always
So,
saw my retirement as just sitting back, goofing off with friends and having fun with life. But now this is really feeling like work.
yeah. So
And
I wouldn't want it to be work for you, but for me, it's fun. I love making videos.
well,
You
that's awesome, because
Yeah.
we get the benefit from your fun. I love that you have fun with it. For me, it would be work. So I don't want to never, I don't want to say never, right?
But
Maybe. I just
it
don't
could,
think I'd have anything interesting to say.
so I think it's a matter of, so I think the, you're, st you're, I keep saying it, but you're like the, developing superhero. It's like who doesn't yet know that they're a superhero. Like for me, you're a superhero in this space, and it doesn't have to be conversations. Like I didn't start off like thinking I'm going to be interviewing or talking to anyone on the channel. It's just me making videos in PowerPoint, so which I'm always going to do. It's just my style. But no,
And you made yourself a rock star in the process. So
well, I mean, I've got a long ways to go, right? I think I'm one sickness away. Like, my data's bad for a month.
we all are. Trust me,
Yeah,
we all are. Yeah.
yeah. But it could be something as simple as just people want to see more, I think, of you and the lifestyle. And, I think it could be something as simple as, I think you do garage workouts, right? You do the workouts in your garage.
In my
So
basement.
your
Yeah.
basement. Okay, so just setting up a camera. You don't even have to talk or look at the camera. People watching you work out, which maybe seems weird, but there could be people who would benefit from seeing. I mean, you're effing 62. You don't look, you don't sound, you're living the lifestyle, I think, and a lot of people could learn from that. I mean, your website is great. The davepasco.net is great, but I don't know. I think just setting up like a camera and just doing your thing. And like sometimes maybe you'll be out of the shot. So what? But most of the time you're in the shot, and you just upload the video and see. I don't know, just an idea. But I think a lot of
Well,
people benefit from your.
it's funny you say that, because there's another YouTuber, you might be familiar with her, Sierra Clark.
Yep,
She did a 90-day on Brian's blueprint
yep.
and met with Brian. She and her crew were out here to visit me last weekend. And so they filmed me going throughout the day through all my routines. And one was she and I did a little short, just one little snippet of a P90X workout together, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, so where Sierra has reached out to me too. And yeah,
Cool.
so we're scheduling to when she would come out here. But I'm in a little small 1-bedroom apartment with water stains behind my sink, and my stove burner just melted somehow. So and it's like a little apartment. I try not to kick the walls when I'm doing like Taekwondo kicks. So that's going to be interesting to.
They'll have to do for you like they had to do for me, because I'm in a little 900 square foot house, and they had to use a wide lens to be able to film stuff. Because
Gotcha.
my sauna, my Carol bike, it's all in my laundry room. So there's really just enough room as a pathway to get between them to get to the washer and the dryer. So they had to get in there and film, like sit on top of the wash machine to be able to film us in the sauna. So I'm sure they'll have to do the same for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. But so anyway, I think you have a lot to offer. It doesn't have to be with interviews, doesn't have to be making PowerPoint presentations or anything crazy. And if it feels like work, you shouldn't do it. But anyway, that's just I'm not trying. I try not to push people. It's you're a grown up. You can make your own decisions and do, you know what I'm saying? So, but I
Yeah.
think it would be great if you did. And,
I
the
thought it might be
pressure.
fun to maybe film that, doing the Pronuvo, going to do the stem cells, like film some little segment and put it out there. I just really haven't thought it through.
Yeah.
There's the
Some
whole
people,
production value of it all too.
yeah, see, I have no interest in, for me, the production value seems like work. So it's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to sit there editing for hours and I don't want to send it somewhere and then it's back and forth. I just want to create and put it out there. So,
I'm the
but
same with Instagram, right? I mean, I've been putting some things out on Instagram, but that's way more work than I really wanted it to be too. I mean, I never desired to be an influencer, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
just like,
yeah,
no. But I've been getting into that, I've been sucked into more and more of that, which is another big time vampire for me because
yeah,
the more I'm on Instagram, finding and posting content and then, exploring the content of other people is more time that I'm taking away from podcasts or taking away from going out and living my life and having fun, right?
yeah,
It's all part of the game. You kind of have to do it to get viewers and keep people interested. And
yeah. So, so that's another thing I think you differ from most of the people in the longevity space is you're out there living life. Like you're not counting calories, you're not, calorie restricted, you're not on an exercise prescription like me. Like you've got, it's just, it's not the F around find out. It's just you're literally living life, right? So travel's a big part of your approach, and then you're not stressed
it seems to
about,
be now.
say that
It
again.
seems to be now. It never used to be. I was more like, because I heard you on your interview, um, where you were talking about how you're more of a like it's a stay at home kind of guy.
Yeah,
I've always been that way as well. It's just that this year, way more than ever, I've been doing a ton of traveling. Like went to Dallas for the biohacking conference. I went to Austin for a longevity conference. Went to Italy for the 30 days. I was supposed to do Kilimanjaro. I'm going to be, going to LA here in another week. And then I'm going to Nicaragua for a mission trip, in November. And so wow, it's like way, way more traveling than I've ever been used to. So, and that also tends to add to the stress because travel is rough. It's really seems, at least for me, it's pretty rough on my system.
so how do you get the workouts in during, with the traveling? How do you work around that?
It's a challenge. Well, I'll bring my laptop with me, and that's twofold. One, because I can edit my website and keep that up to date while I'm away. But I also have the P90X workout videos on that. So and my workout schedule. So I can do a P90X workout in my hotel room if I need to do.
Even with time change and being on a plane for 6 hours, still doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, it's not pretty. Let's put it that way.
It's a grind. It's more of a grind than usual.
It
All right,
is. Yeah.
so then diet too. I think you try to eat it as clean as possible, but then not counting calories. Don't have an eating window. You're eating, I guess, what's like, how do you look at diet in this equation?
Hmm. Diet is huge in this equation. I think you started to allude to it early on that earlier that with my true diagnostic data, the only like real change I made between having a 0.77, I think it was, to getting the 0.66 was finally cleaning up my diet. So I think the diet, the exercise and the sleep are all required. I definitely had the exercise. I think I was doing okay with the sleep, but I was still doing a lot of processed foods. And at the time, my while my parents were still alive, it was very difficult to get them to eat cleaner. Now, I was the one going and buying the food, and I was buying it with my money. So I was sort of a bully in that respect that I would make them eat healthier food, whether they wanted to or not. But it didn't come without a lot of pushback because they loved their Hot Pockets, which I still had to buy for them, and their Kraft American fake cheese slices, and things of that nature that they wanted to. I was embarrassed to even put in my shopping cart for fear that somebody would see me, you eat that? Which is silly because I mean everybody else in the grocery store is buying the same things. They could care less what I'm eating, but my carts are almost always just fruit and vegetables loaded up from the produce aisle, and then rarely anything else from the rest of the supermarket. But when I finally started doing after the parents passed away and all the work that I did on this house was finished, because that took a couple of years, then I was finally able to start just making all of my own meals like I'd always wanted to do, rather than eating a pizza here or some Taco Bell there, in between eating clean. Now I was eating 100% clean. And that seemed to make all the difference in my true diagnostic pace of aging.
So even on what you consider less clean versus clean diet, at your worst, it's 0.82, it's not 1.1, it's not 1.0.
Yeah.
So the true diagnostic, or not true diet, the need and pace, it's an epigenetic prediction based on 19 biomarkers. So one of those biomarkers is VO2 max. So
Mm.
basically, they had a cohort of people, they had data for those 19 biomarkers, VO2 max, some blood testing stuff, waist to hip ratio, a whole bunch of other stuff. And then it's the epigenetic prediction of the people that had the most youthful clinical biomarkers versus the people who had, intermediate and the worst. So considering that exercise is a big foundation of your approach, I'd bet that, VO2 max, your VO2 max being relatively high, probably skews you closer towards that 0.66. And then, but, and probably you know, your fitness level is still probably better than people my age or even younger. Like you train way more than most people. So,
Which I don't see, because when I'm running, I've got way older people just passing me all the time. I'm one of those slow AF runners. I mean, I have, I'm mostly in zone two. I saw a trainer when I went to do one of my DEXA scans and had my VO2 max checked. The trainer said, you've got this whole nother top range
yeah.
that you've never explored. And I had to agree, because I don't, at that time, that was prior to Carol Bike. I'd not done a whole lot of zone five training. It was mostly always zone two and three and some four.
So,
So
yep.
I need to really focus on doing that more, because I think I could pick up my speed a whole lot more. And I'm
I,
starting to see that slowly.
I don't know that it's a running speed thing. So, and even I think the VO2 max test where you have to physically breathe in the device and you're running up, so it's a graded test. So you're going up the hill, at a faster and faster pace every couple minutes. I don't know that may be, granted, it's the gold standard, but all out sprints, I can imagine that your lung capacity and your ability to process oxygen and your quote unquote VO2 max, um, you don't have this external stimulus applied to your face. It's kind of like white coat hypertension, where people's blood pressure gets raised because they see the doctor in the white coat. There may be something to, would your VO2 max be as high if you're not running it up a hill, which I don't know, most people really aren't training hills, versus the Carol bike is kicking your ass for 10 minutes. That's got to be a VO2 max booster, which
Well, at
no,
least for 40 seconds.
but for 10 minutes cumulatively,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
still, I mean, granted, it's up and down, but
yeah.
um, compared to someone doing, whether it's slow runs or just less exercise and they're less fit, their VO2 max won't be as high, their Dunedin pace will be a little bit worse. So I think that's the underlying thing, with Seams very, very great score, 0.6, whatever. Brian's 0.6 in that ballpark. I think that's the underlying factor, is having you relatively high, because your worst data is pretty much my average data for Dunedin pace. And yet
Wow.
all of my other biomarkers, I'm not trying to optimize VO2 max, at least right now, for some of the reason you mentioned with, when you have that 9 to 5 and it's hard to train around that. I'm kind of stuck in that for now. So I'm limited on the exercise. But yeah, I think that's the underlying thing for Dunedin pace, which is the VO2 max. But it's just funny how at your worst diet, you've got data that's 10 years, someone that's 10 years younger chronologically, and that's really trying to push it even as young as he can. And you're already, it's like nothing for you. It's easy. So
Well, you're going to get there. I trust in that, because you're going to find it.
yeah,
I totally believe in that.
yeah, it just may take having to train more and having the time and the freedom to do that. But
I
I'll
watched my VO2 max go from 32 to 42 just through run training, just getting out there and pushing at it.
yeah.
So you're going to be great. You're going to be way better than me.
So I don't doubt that at all. So I've come from like training like a gorilla and actually cutting down on the workouts because of the HRV and resting heart rate data. But it just comes down to the other responsibilities of life. And I only have like an exercise cost where if I go above that, I don't recover as well. So and then if I don't recover as well, then my actual 90-minute workouts start to suffer. And I don't want to, that's like the core of what's keeping me fit and functional. So, but at some point, I expect to have more of that, time to spend on exercise cost, and hopefully sooner than later in the next year or so, to really supercharge it and kick it up and try to get to where you guys are with the 0.66.
I
Uh,
know you want to keep getting more and more lean, right? You want to lose more weight, or are you good with your weight now?
so I had it down to, so I'm 5'7", 141 pounds. Last 2 days, it's been on the even 139. So that's going in the wrong direction. And I say that only because the HRV and resting heart rate, for the longest time, they've been improving with getting leaner without changing workouts and frequency, intensity, duration. But then once I got below 140, now it's like they hit a plateau, and now that stress of too many calories was gone, but now too few calories might be a stressor.
Hmm.
So I stopped, and
Yeah.
then, for like the last 3 or 4 blood tests, I basically keep it, I'm trying to body weight maintenance and then I also started to see some dip in the workout performance. So, everything I have is structured sets, reps, movements. So I kind of have that P90X 14-day workout and the 90-minute workout every workout. Um, so I know how many pull-ups I should be doing, or I do every workout. There is no change it up for me. It just doesn't work. So for the longest time, 12 to 13 pull-ups, high quality pull-ups above the bar, pronated. And then 2 months ago, it was 10. And then I was like, wait, what's going on here? Am I just being lazy? Am I getting bored? Is this
Well,
aging?
if you're losing weight, you're probably losing muscle, right?
But
Because you're
body
lean
weight had been,
already.
that could be true. But during the 15 to 20 pound weight loss, there was no, still 12 to 13 pull-ups. So, and I've been body weight stable this whole year. So that couldn't be a variable, right? So is it low NAD? So I increased nicotinic acid. Anyway, I've gotten that back, but some of that equation may have been I was getting too lean and I was starting to lose a little bit of muscle. So yeah, I've got to stay where I am now before I try to push it. I don't want to get into the anorexic, and then it's like function isn't good and frail. I don't want any of that. I want to be as lean and fit and functional as I possibly can, so.
Yeah, I'm down another 10 pounds from what I was like 3 weeks ago, which is way, 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 way the wrong direction for me. And according to my bathroom scale, that was 7 pounds of muscle that I lost. And I
Wow.
can see it. I can see it in my workouts because I'm not able to push the weights that I was doing just a month ago.
Unintentional? Is that
Unintentional is because I was just pushing so hard through like doing all these schedules for these trips, like for this whole LA trip, being able to schedule all those things at the same time was pretty stressful for me. I don't have people to do stuff like that for me. Some folks do. I know you and I don't. But and getting ready for Sierra coming out and just getting all the data to you and just everything was weighing on me and I wasn't settling down. And then I would try to sleep and I'm still all tense. Uh, that could lead me to another story that I don't even know if I want to tell, but yeah, why not? I'll tell it. It's embarrassing. I've been having this like bouts of diarrhea for like a couple of weeks and completely puzzled at what it was. At first, it happened right around when I started eating watermelon every day. So I thought maybe I got a tainted watermelon. So I threw the watermelon away. Went a few more days, still had it. Huh, that's weird. All right, what else could it be? What am I eating? Well, my diet hasn't changed any that I know of. Gosh, maybe it's my water filters. Maybe I need to change out my water filters. So the AquaTrue and the refrigerator water filter, I swapped those out. It wasn't time. It was way too early, but I did it anyway, just to be sure. No. So more days went by, still nothing. But then, a couple days I'd be fine and then right back into it again, which thought, what the heck is causing this? Well, then I thought, all right, I do sprouts, maybe potentially something. I got like an E. coli or, some kind of salmonella, in the sprouts. I'm always very, very careful with my sprouting, but so I threw my sprouts away, bleached everything down again, ran them through the dishwasher, started all over again. No, still had the same problem. Then it started to dawn on me like, okay, so there is a pattern to this. Weekends, I don't seem to have the issue, but weekdays, I do. What it, I did change my supplements a little recently because Seam had done a review of my supplements, right? He recommended some better timing, which I totally agreed with. And then due to some studies I was not taking the recommended study dose of glucosamine. So I doubled my dose of that, right? And then my taurine, I think I'm trying to remember if that was, I was not taking the right amount or I just didn't have the right amount on my website. But either way, I still increased that to more optimal according to the study data of what you should take. Not thinking that, my bowel tolerance may not be able to handle that along with everything else that I'm taking. But more and more days went by of me trying to figure out what's causing this. So there's some days where I just take the morning supplements and not the evening, and I'd be fine. And then I'd swap that and try taking the evening supplements, not the morning. Nope, it's the evening supplements. So and then, you've got so many supplements you're taking, you can't
Oh
just figure
gosh.
out which ones, which can't pick it out, right?
Yeah.
So when I package up all my supplements, I do it for a month. So I've got 4 weeks of things packed up. And now I'm 3 weeks into this new iteration with Seam's recommendations. And I think I can't take this last week of supplements because I know it's going to give me diarrhea. I had to throw it all away and start over again. So that was a huge waste of money. But at least I figured out what it was and I was able to, knock my doses back down again, still higher than what I was taking, but not like doubling up on them. And that made a huge difference. That helped a lot. So I think that had a lot to do with the weight loss too, in addition to the stress that I was putting myself under. And it was wrecking my sleep because it would affect me mostly when I was trying to sleep and then having to just get up and run for the bathroom. So all of it together was terrible. And I see that it impacted me on my pace of aging, my true diagnostic data.
So wait, problem solved now, or the diarrhea is still, it should be,
Problem solved. Yeah.
yeah. So that's a great story because I think, figuring out issues and then I don't think it's intuitive for most people. Like it's just they go to the doctor put them on antibiotics maybe, and then, you haven't really fixed the problem. And it was just a supplement in this case, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, fantastic. All right. So,
I've made so many dumb mistakes with supplements through the years.
what other, oh gosh, wait. So that brings me to also, besides that, the dumb mistakes with supplements, but so this was a recent weak spot story, right? So do you
Yes.
have weak spots that you're trying to correct, whether it's like flexibility, whether it's I don't know, a herniated disc? Like, do you have any?
Oh yeah. So on my birthday in 2021, I believe it was, I got a concussion at a roller coaster park. So as a celebration of my youthfulness, I used to go to a roller coaster park every year on my birthday. I mean, it wasn't part of like any longevity plan. It was just me celebrating how young I still feel. And my plan was to do that until the day I dropped, right? But this particular year, so I used to come home every year after doing the roller coasters, and my head would just hurt. And I would tell my mom, I don't think this is really healthy for me if my head hurts after doing this, because it's probably all that motion is probably not good for my brain. But it was just a passing thought. It wasn't really a serious belief until the concussion. So I'm on the very last ride of the day. It's at a Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio, and I'm on the Raptor, my favorite ride there. And something about that ride that day, it came to really an abrupt stop, and it felt like my brain wanted to keep going, even though the skull stopped it. My entire field of vision went down to this tiny little dot, and then came sucking back, and I was just like stunned. And the ride's over, and my friends are like, "Hey, what are you doing? Come on, we got to get off the ride." And I wasn't there, and that scared me. And my headache didn't just last for a couple of hours; it lasted for, well, probably like a week and a half. So I went to see the doctor and got diagnosed with a concussion, and my balance, which used to be great because I would do a lot of one-legged stands and things in yoga. Now my balance was terrible. I thought, well, this is not good because this really affected me. So I started doing the Dr. Google and looking up things like what's the protocol for brain healing, and found that hyperbaric oxygen treatment is a big treatment for boxers, football players, anybody dealing with a TBI or a concussion. So I didn't really want to spend that kind of money, but I found a clinic close by. I'd drive about an hour to get there and started doing sessions. And then I started on some peptides like cerebrolysin, for the BDNF, just anything I could find that would be a treatment for the brain. And and now I do a lot of, I guess you would say, balance board type of things, trying to get my balance back. I posted few things on YouTube where I'm playing around with a slack line in my backyard.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I'm bad at it, and I don't mind looking like a complete idiot, in front of people, but it's something that if I keep doing, I know I'm going to get better at. And just I've only done it like 5 times, and then I haven't done it again since. But each time I did it, I filmed it and put it out on YouTube, or not YouTube, on
Instagram.
Instagram, I meant to
Yeah, yeah.
say, yeah. I know if I stick with it, I'll get a lot better with it, because I saw a lot of improvement just in those 5 little times. And now I bought a board for indoors that's got a slack line built into it. It's called a Gibbons board. So now in the wintertime, I can do the slack line stuff indoors without having to go out in the
Nice.
backyard in the snow. So I am working a lot on my balance just to try to bring that back to what it used to be. I'm getting there.
So having seen you on that balance, like you trying to balance, it was like, it looks like a rubber band, a giant rubber band. I
It
wouldn't say
is.
that's someone that's had a head injury and his balance is, or, your balance is terrible. I didn't even consider the decades earlier head injury. It just looks like,
Well, that wasn't even decades. That was 2021. So we're talking, what, 4 years ago?
oh, the roller coaster. Oh, that was just a
Yeah.
few years ago. All right. But I didn't get that sense that you had some kind of head injury and then your balance was terrible. You just look like a regular person on a trying to balance. It didn't look which should be good news, right? So
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel good about it. I suck like a normal person now instead of sucking like a injured person.
so do you think the HBOT helped in that case and the peptides too?
I like to think it did. I don't have any way of measuring that. Now I'm going to be doing another series of HBOT in conjunction with the stem cells that I'm going to be getting. So I've got 10 of those lined up, and I may do another 10 after that.
So where are the stem cells injected? It's just into blood and then they can circulate.
So in this case, I'm doing it's a therapeutic dose, because so another weak spot is, I would like to blame it on P90X, but I have a rotator cuff impingement, and I'm gonna show my elbows. I gave plasma today, so that's why I'm taped up on both arms. This elbow doesn't straighten out. There was a time when, back in the days of Facebook, where there was a thing that was going around where you would do 22 push-ups for 22 days to bring awareness to suicide for veterans. And I have some of those videos are still out on Venmo, and I think they're available on my website, really, and not intentionally, but they're still there. They're still publicly accessible. I know some people have watched them, but I would do a different set of push-ups each day for those 22 days, getting progressively harder and crazier each time. And I would practice the more advanced ones while I was still filming the more basic ones. And in the practice for one that involved I guess it's a stability ball. There's one where you would do the push-up, you start off with the stability ball out to extension, you'd come down, you'd push off and bounce up with the stability ball off the ground, and then catch yourself again before you smash your face in the ground. And in doing that, I ended up like tearing something in this elbow. And I don't know if you can see it in the video. I can straighten this one out perfectly. This one cannot. It's still got a nice bend to it. It healed awkwardly.
But like strengthen that arm. I mean, it not dramatically worse. It's just you can't straighten your arm.
Well, since then I've gotten the strength back, because this is I'm left-handed, so that's my more dominant arm. The strength has come back, but I'm still limited in motion with that. So I've got the elbow impingement, the elbow, yeah, what do you call it? The shortening, the shoulder impingement. One of my knees is starting to feel a little funky. So anyway, I'm getting doses in all of those, and systemic as well.
So also, all right, wait. So then supplements. So bad. I hope that works out. I hope the stem cells.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I know what it feels like to have the shoulder impingement. Like from doing overhead presses, it's happened to everyone, I'm sure, in time, and they are misery. Like it feels almost like. Granted, I've never had a dislocated shoulder, but I get you. I get you on that one. It's
Well,
incapacitating.
then I had got it fixed and I messed it up again immediately because there's a little thing called Club Exosomes. Dr. Sandra Kaufman and Stephen McCain run it. So I went out to Vegas, I got the exosome treatment, and I felt amazing. For the first time ever that night, I was able to sleep on this shoulder and not feel any pain. And so I'm like, I am cured. Well, idiot. It takes many weeks to really heal from something like that. But I was starting to feel my oats and thinking like I was Superman. When I got home, I have a pair of Olympic like gymnastic rings hanging from the tree in the backyard that I always loved playing on. So I got right back onto those and I was doing my flips and things and my chin ups and inverse chin ups and all that. And I felt it. I ended up messing it right back up again. So now I know when I get these stem cells to go easy, not try to be Superman, do the H spot, do the other peptides that are going to come along with the treatment, and there's ozone that's going to come along with the therapy. Do all the things, take the time, heal, go through the rehab routines, all of that. And then once, like months from now, when I'm healed, maybe I can start playing with that stuff again.
So wait, so the exosomes are from you? They're taking plasma,
Nope. Yeah, they're exogenous exosomes,
but where they'd have to come from somewhere, from someone.
placental derived.
Aha, interesting.
The same with the stem cells.
So technically you could take exosomes from like you can isolate them from blood or exosomes
Yeah,
circulate in blood. So just if you get them from plasma,
yeah.
just find a high
Just from
performance
cord
athlete
blood.
from cord blood, yeah, from cord blood from the newborn. But I'd imagine if you got it from an elite athlete or more elite, I guess, or someone who is 20 years old, exosomes from a 20-year-old,
Yeah.
its rejuvenation capacity may be better, exosomal ability to rejuvenate may be better,
Well, I mean, supposedly the rejuvenation capacity of a newborn is
newborn.
at its
That's
peak.
true. That's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the stem cells too, it's placenta derived or
Yeah. Yeah, because
interesting.
I'm at an age now where trying to get it out of my own fat or bone marrow, it's not going to be that beneficial.
Yeah.
If I would have done that, I should have banked that, decades ago, but they didn't have it decades ago for me. So it wasn't really an opportunity.
So how do you balance a potential overuse injury versus trying to repair damage that may be from overuse, right? What if
Yeah.
the exosomes and everything else can't repair and it's just a matter of volume, training volume?
Hmm.
Considered?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do any stupid things again. I mean, like where I know there's potential for injury. But I don't want to stop what I'm doing because of my age, right? I know you've said it many times. I've said it too. Being good for your age, those are fighting words for me.
Yeah.
That's dirty words.
Yeah.
I don't want to be good for my age. I want to be good for any age,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, I get you there, but it's like the car can only, you can fix the car as much as you want, but the fact is if the car is still traveling 1 million miles a day, maybe if the car went 500, I don't know, some prescribed dose where you're still getting the benefit of elite fitness, but you're now it's less, wear and tear on the joints. I don't know that it can be, I don't know that it can be repaired with exosomes and stem cells. I hope that it can.
I don't either. I don't either. I'm willing to give it a try. It was quite the shell out of cash that I didn't want to part with. But it's an experiment. It's going to be an expensive experiment. I'm willing to see what happens with it. Just from the benefit that I got just from the exosomes, that was so profound to me that I'm thinking that this should be a good thing. And in speaking with them, the consult prior to, I guess there are people that don't really respond well, and others they like to refer to as super responders. And because of the experience that I had with the exosomes of feeling that relief immediately, they think I might be one of those super responders. So we'll see.
Could it
We'll
be
see.
a dose too, where you'd need to get it not just once every however couple months, but maybe once a day, once a week? Like you got to get the dose
Potentially.
too.
Yeah, potentially for like a therapeutic dose for a really bad injury. It like every 3 months they recommend a redo. So don't know whether I'll need another dose 3 months from now or not. Kind of
Well,
hoping not.
or sooner. I mean, maybe that you got immediate relief tells me that, it's just a dose thing. It's just,
Well, the way they explained it, they say that the exosomes are very short lasting.
yep,
The stem cells will keep going for a good 3 months. And so that's why they say a 3 month cycle, because really just about the time that the stem cells are no longer giving you benefit would be that 3 month portion where you could get another hit and stay consistent.
nice. All right, so HBOT, this is where it comes to the, Dave Pascoe is underrated. HBOT, stem cells, exosomes, like most people are not doing this.
And
Um,
plasma donations. Most people aren't doing that either.
but plasma donations, that's to what? To dump iron, to lower ferritin, that's just to,
No, getting rid of degraded proteins. I look at it like changing the oil in your car, right? As you go on, you could not change the oil in your car ever if you don't want to, but you're going to keep accumulating all that, waste and the broken down, the engine components that are wearing down, the gunk that builds up. I look at our plasma the same way. I think that's one of the benefits of getting plasmapheresis is, and I know people will pay 10 grand to go get their plasma removed and replaced with albumin because you're dumping all of those old proteins that your body's no longer clearing. So you're getting rid of all that gunk and you're now starting with a fresh, clean slate. And then if you did young blood on top of that, you might even be getting some beneficial proteins from younger people, which is yet another level up. But I can't afford young blood. I'm not probably never going to be able to afford that. Or young plasma. I don't know why they call it young blood. It sounds more interesting that way, I guess. So instead of spending 10 grand on plasmapheresis, I just go make regular plasma donations. And it's sort of the same thing. Based on the donation size that they take from me each time, it works out to replacing my entire plasma blood volume every 4.5 to 5 donations.
wow. So, but then I think the potential weakness there is you would assume that your body would, so you're dumping right? I get, it makes sense where there could be a buildup of stuff, and that buildup of stuff is bad systemically because you can't get rid of stuff you should be getting rid of. All right, so you dump it, and then the idea is your body should be making new, fresh proteins and metabolites and all the things, right? But what if that's less and less the case with age, right? Then
Hmm.
it's like you can't win either way in that case. So I look at it the other way. It's for me, it's I get the plasmapheresis, I get the data, I've seen all that data, but I'm still not sold. Like I don't want to be tied to a young animal and our blood connect, all the crazy stuff with that. But so my approach is how can I optimize the system so that the blood is young, so I don't have to dump it and I don't have to worry about a blood transfusion. What is that recipe, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so I look at it like that.
I know they only allow you to give whole blood every 60 days or every 56 days. And that's only because it takes that long to build up red cells. You could technically donate even more, but they like to be on the extreme safe side and make it 56 days. They do the same thing with the plasma because you can donate plasma twice a week because your body just regenerates it that quickly.
Interesting.
So that's why I'm not really concerned about those proteins.
Do you see a difference in biomarkers or subjective feel when you donate
No,
plasma? No change.
no. And I've tried because I really thought, hey, maybe this will give me the next, bump up on my pace of aging score. But no, HBOT, plasma, nothing, no change.
All right, so plasma donation, exosomes, HBOT, stem cells. There's other stuff on those. You've got a smart house. Um,
Yeah.
what technology defines your house as a smart house?
Well, I have a mix of technologies because everything's from a different company. So all of my blinds are leveler blinds. They're all powered, so they open and close and adjust their pivot at different times of the day depending on the sun. And all of my lighting, I when I remodeled the house, I put recessed lights in all the rooms, and so every bulb is a Philips Hue bulb. It's capable of any color or any intensity, and each one is Bluetooth enabled, and they're all controlled via a Samsung smart. Oh wait, actually that one's controlled by a Philips Hue hub, but I also have a Samsung Smart Things hub that integrates with the Levelor, it integrates with the Philips, it integrates with all of my light switches are Levitron, Zigbee and Z-Wave controlled switches. So those all also are controlled by the SmartThings hub. So I can program everything via that one hub. And in each room I have it's a Amazon Echo Dot. I don't want to refer to her by her name, otherwise I will invoke her right now and I won't be able to shut her up. But there's one of those in every room. And gosh, what else? Oh, even my faucets, they're touch faucets, but they're also network enabled. So like I can take my Aqua True pitcher and put it in the sink and I can say, I'm going to call her Amelia right now. I will say, Amelia, please tell Delta to fill my pitcher. And I can walk away and it'll fill the pitcher to the right amount without overflowing and wasting any water, and come back and take it and put it back in the thing. I mean, just silly little gimmicks like that, right? But it's when you buy things now that are new, they all come with this enablement. So even all of my TVs are smart TVs. So I have them all set right now with I have one TV in every room of the house. They all come on and turn off automatically, so I don't have to deal with them. And they're all programmed to the same thing. So I have a Google, what is it? The Google Chrome device that powers all of them. So when I'm watching one of your videos, if I'm not glued to it right on my phone, it's playing on all the TVs. So as I'm walking through the house doing my housework, I can see you just follow from room, even down in the basement, into the laundry room, my workout area, the whole 9 yards. Or if I'm listening to podcasts, I'll have them, Chromecast to the TVs that way. So it's in every room.
High-tech house. All right, wait, so the lights got me. So I guess you vary you minimize blue light at a certain time?
Yeah, yeah. In the evening, as the sun begins to set, they're programmed, and the sun, of course, setting is variable, but part of the SmartThings hub is it's always connected to the internet, so it knows as the sun is changing, it varies its routines based on sunrise, sunset. So it begins to shift. Well, actually, immediately shifts everything to red, and then throughout the evening, it progressively dims and dims and dims until it's time for me to go to bed. So if
So
I'm home or not, it's going to follow this program. So when I'm out of town to the neighbors, it looks like I'm home because all the lights are coming on, doing their thing, and the blinds are coming up and going down. And but when I go to bed, since I go to bed a lot earlier than 11 o'clock is when I have all that timed, I will tell her, Amelia, good night. And she then goes through her routine to make sure that every light and everything in the house is all turned off at that point. And then in the mornings when I wake, I say, Amelia, good morning. And she says, good morning. And, today's date, and, here's the weather in your city, and here's what's on your calendar for today. And she tells me a little fun fact. And then, so while she's doing all that, I'm doing my stretching and my morning routine while I'm still in bed. But then she reads me or plays for me the news on CNN, Fox News, and ABC News. So I'm filling my mind with what's going on out in the world, because then I put all that stuff away and I don't want to hear any more of it. But at least I know what's going on in the world, and I know what my day is going to consist of, because she just told me my schedule. So I'm thinking about, okay, what do I have to prepare for while I'm doing my stretching, while I've got my beamer, which is underneath me, running, and hopefully helping my blood flow and circulation, and I got the Nano V strapped in with the little cannula, and I'm inhaling the wonderful vapors that are coming from that, which are also helping with my protein misfolding and oxidative stress. So I'm like stacking all these biohacks while I'm still in bed, listening to her chatting in my ear.
It's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Do you ever worry that the house is gonna go? I know it's a dumb question, but a house is gonna go rogue?
But I've wondered about somebody hacking into it and like really messing with me. So that's a possibility. But I do have I have a hardware firewall, because I was a network security guy, so I know how to do, network firewalls, and so I have a pretty good firewall in place. Hopefully, I'm not inviting people to try to hack through it right now
Yeah.
by putting this out there.
All right. So also PEMF. So I guess you're using electromagnetic radiation or specific frequencies to try to enhance rejuvenation. So what?
Yeah, my amp coil I use mostly for recovery. So there's lots of detox and recovery protocols in that. So I really love it for that. the Beamer is, I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of PEMF, but not. It's on the same level of PEMF, but their claim to fame, they have, you can only claim so many things according to the FDA based on the studies that you can prove. So their claim to fame is, blood flow. It helps with being able to bring red cells into the finer capillaries of the body. I'm sure it does a lot more things than that, but that's the only thing that they can really make claim to. So yeah, so I like to use PEMF just for my recovery and just helping to keep me going.
So do you notice a difference with all of the stuff that you're doing pretty regularly when you travel? And then do you notice subjectively, or I mean, granted, you have the travel, jet lag, and all that messing with you, but like, it's got to be night and day in terms of, or maybe not. Like,
When I travel, it's funny because I'm so used to being able to wake up in the middle of the night with my sleep mask still on and just ask Amelia what time it is without having to pick it up and go, look, turn a light on and mess with my circadian rhythms, right? Um, and I can't tell her good morning or good night when I'm in a hotel, so that's a little odd. But what was your? I know I'm not answering your question.
no. So just do you notice a difference? I mean, granted, the routine is different, but
Yeah.
like, is it a subjective thing where it's like, if I don't do the mat and I don't do if you're not doing all the things, you don't
Yeah.
notice it, you don't notice it, but
No, yeah,
it's
I don't notice any major difference. I mean, I know they're doing good things for me. It's just I can't measure them,
really,
if that makes sense. I
yeah.
can't quantify them.
So is there like a biohack or hacks or interventions that you've done where it's just like, this is essential. I mean, granted, eating clean and sticking to the workout approach and getting good sleep foundation, but taking that a step above where it's like you saw your biomarkers and you're like, all right, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that to move the needle here. And then it moved the needle. Like, do you have any examples of stuff like that?
Yeah, a sauna made a huge difference for me. I saw that I my appearance is more vascular thanks to the sauna because it seems to be melting away that subcutaneous fat.
Hmm.
Plus, I feel just absolutely amazing after a sauna. So when I don't get a sauna session in, I really miss that. I do feel the absence of that. Um, a supplement example would be nicotinamide riboside or NR. So there was a time when I was doing my P90X workouts, probably about 55, maybe 54, at age 54. I started seeing that it was taking me more than an hour to get through an hour P90X workout just because my energy wasn't there. Then I heard on a podcast something about, NAD levels and how they decline with age. And then there was this product called True Niagen. So again, thinking this is bullshit, this isn't going to do anything for me. I'll give it a try. Let's see what happens. I took it, and on the third day of taking it, I didn't feel anything different going about my day. So there was nothing at all subjective about, if no change. But when I did my P90X workout for that day, I felt amazing. I got through the P90X workout, in the hour time, and I still had so much energy left. I did another one just because I could, because I wanted to see where's the bottom end of this? Where does this floor drop out of this energy? Because this is amazing. And I've been doing that ever since.
So wait, what dose of NR? And then have you measured NAD levels?
I have, yeah, because I started just recently last year, I started seeing the same thing. I started to see that my energy levels were dropping off. And I assumed it was probably NR related because I was doing just the base dose. I think it's 300 milligrams. I'd have to go back and look. Um, so I did two tests. I did one from Do Not Age and I did the Ginfinity test. And they both came back and told me that my NAD was still just at the low end, in the lower range of optimal, but still within optimal. So I knew that wasn't it. And then I guess this would be one of the many dumb supplement things that I did was I did a SpectraCell micronutrient analysis. And based on that, I found that I had a B vitamin deficiency.
Hmm.
I'm like, wait, what? How can I have a B vitamin deficiency? I supplement in B vitamins. This makes no sense. So then I had to take a really deep dive and figure out, all right, what is it that I'm doing and taking or eating or drinking that has the potential to be absorbing or blocking my absorption of B vitamins. And I found that it was I do a lemon tea in the mornings. I make or I was brewing a very strong brew of many different types of tea. I had pu'er, oolong, green, black. I can't even think of them all right now. There were at least 5 different teas that I would mix, and I'd mix them quite strong. And I would brew them. I'd put crushed lemon juice in there and humic and fulvic minerals, which I still do. But I realized I had found this before, that by doing this tea, I was impacting my ferritin levels previously. They were being driven way too low. Took me a while to figure out what was doing that. But then I backed off on like the dosage, like how strong, how many tea bags I would use. And the ferritin level thing resolved itself. But I didn't realize it was still impacting my B vitamins. It was blocking, I guess it's something to do with the polyphenols. We're blocking the uptake of the B vitamins. Somehow they were interfering with the receptors. So once I took out the tea completely, I just threw it right out of my routine. My next test came back normal and everything was good again. And my energy level popped back up again too.
Interesting. It's like there's never enough stuff to measure. It's like always,
Yeah.
it's like whack-a-mole. You fix one thing and then 5 things pop up too. The NR story is interesting because nicotinamide or NMN, right, which is in the same ballpark. It's nicotinamide based. 300 milligrams doesn't make a dent on my NAD. Yeah, but then 50, I'm sure you know that 50 milligrams of nicotinic acid is basically the equivalent of 1 gram of NMN. But that's different, different for you. You got a boost
Right.
with 300, right? So, but
there's so many other things that come into play there too. Have you checked like your CD38 to make sure that's not impacting your
So I
uptake?
haven't measured CD38, but the argument against that is 65 grams of fresh parsley, which is about 100 milligrams of apigenin per day. And I find it hard to believe the CD38 wouldn't be lower. And then the other argument too is that NAD can be degraded into trigonelline. And my trigonelline levels before all those trigonelline experiments through diet was like almost 0, like completely none, which suggests no NAD degradation into trigonelline. So yeah, I don't know. It could be something else. Infection could be a lot of things. Infection that's not related to CD38. I don't know. Still trying to figure out.
It's fun how all this stuff interrelates. You mess with one thing and it can change so many other things.
Yeah, but
It's
that's
fascinating to learn about.
yeah, but we're like such early days. AI eventually is going to crunch all of the data, all of the metabolomics. And, we're only still looking at a snapshot. Like metabolomics, it's like 4,000 metabolites or more. We're only looking at 600, and the epigenetics is just one modification. There's acetylation, there's other epigenetic modifications besides methylation. So we're just still how much of the picture are we looking at? We're looking at the corner piece and we're trying to tell what's going on, right? So
yeah, the IOLO data just kind of blows my mind because that's a whole bunch of other markers I'd never ever considered before.
yeah, so I'm focused on the kynurenine to tryptophan ratio, which I think totally underrated. Most people don't know about it. It's activated that, so tryptophan degrades into kynurenine, and that inflammaging basically activates that enzyme. So, and it increases during aging, higher levels associated with an increased all-cause mortality risk. And some of the centenarian studies that I'm working with in academia, we see that exact pattern. Higher kynurenine, lower tryptophan, so more degradation of tryptophan during aging. So I think that's totally underrated. I've been, originally I was yelling about albumin. Nobody was thinking about albumin. And I mean, it's the most abundant circulating protein. And now more people are thinking about albumin besides glucose and lipids. Kynurenine and tryptophan and ergothioneine are on that list too. But it's not ergothioneine. No matter how much I push, I can't get Iola to include ergothioneine, but maybe one day. But the nicotinamide, have you measured? I don't think I saw your homocysteine, because in my case, the nicotinamide, even very low doses may push it higher. Do you remember off the top of your head homocysteine?
No, but it's low. It
Good.
wasn't alarming to me at all. So
Nice.
yeah.
Because in randomized control trials, nicotinamide increases homocysteine more than nicotinic acid. So, and then you hear the thing, we'll take TMG, and TMG doesn't work for me for whatever reason. So
Then uric acid comes into play there somewhere.
it could. In my case, uric acid is low, unless I increase sardines too much or increase protein intake too much. But
Yeah,
in
I
your
love
case,
sardine.
Sardines are fantastic, but you've resisted the age-related. I don't know. Should we go through some blood test data?
We could.
I don't know how. I mean, I could go forever with, it's up to
I,
you.
I could too.
All right,
So
cool.
I'm
I don't
game.
want to. I don't want to bore you. I don't want to.
I
Let's
mean,
see.
I've already missed my dinner hour, but that's all right. I can keep
Uh,
going.
what do you think? So we call it now and then go for another.
I'm I'm game, really. I'm game to keep going if you want to keep going.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to miss dinner time, and I don't want you to be like, God damn it, I missed it because that mother wouldn't shut up.
No, no, I don't know if you've heard this about my protocols, but when it comes to my routines, I will gladly set a routine aside to spend quality time with somebody.
Nice,
You know,
nice.
that to me, that's way more important because at the end of my days, when I'm laying on a hospital bed somewhere, assuming for a moment I don't get hit by a bus or, some other immediate death. But if I'm laying in a hospital bed somewhere and I'm staring up at a acoustic tile ceiling and fluorescent lighting, listening to this beeping and whooshing of machines keeping me alive, am I going to be there regretting that, oh gosh, I didn't get to eat dinner on time that day because I wasted that time with Michael, right? No, no. In fact, it would be completely the opposite. It would be like, you idiot, you had this opportunity to spend with Mike. Why did you like blow him off to go do some stupid routine that really in the long run doesn't matter?
I get you. High five, my friend. High
High
five.
five.
Yes. Put a Borat voice. I don't know if you like that movie. High five, very nice.
That's
Because
overacting.
I had goofy questions too, like the aliens, like what's going on with the aliens, right? But that's
They
I don't
live
know.
right down the street from me. No, I'm
Oh, that's
kidding.
right. It was wait, was it in Michigan where that was wait, so let's backtrack. Let's backtrack. Do you think that aliens are real? So look, I'm not just longevity. I like to think about stuff that could be true. Maybe it's true, right? And I like to live on that edge of could be crazy as hell, but also could be brilliant. And so I think they're real, 100% real. They may have actually been here and have always been here, may have co-evolved on the planet with us, where, right now you could have primitive human species and then us. Who's to say there isn't a more advanced species that's uh, either evolved, for 100 million years already before us,
Yeah.
tinkered with DNA to enhance our evolution? I don't know. It's fun to think about.
Yeah.
It's speculation. I don't have the answers. So what are your thoughts on the whole?
Well, when you look at like the Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayans, all these ruins that we examined from, centuries ago, and they have these lines that are like dug in the earth and these patterns that can only be seen from space. What? I mean, come on. There's no other purpose for that terrestrially than to be signaling somebody way out in the atmosphere, that can see that. And the technologies that they had seemed far too advanced. It's somehow it's technology that has been lost to civilization. How did they get it? When you look at the pyramids and how they've been built, and the structures and the stones that are placed that are tons and megatons, with you can't even fit it like a playing card between them. The precision is just so perfect. Oh, come on. We can't even do stuff like that today. So
Yeah.
how in the heck did they do that then? They had to have some help. So yeah, I'm not a big alien conspiracy guy, although I love, UFO stuff, and I like watching that kind of stuff on TV and movies. And when I was a kid, there was a book called In Search of Ancient Astronauts that came out that I read, and I think they made that movie. In fact, there was a series that became called In Search of that was sort of launched from that, all about aliens and things. Loved that as a kid. I'm thinking they're probably there, but they're just too advanced for us to detect.
Yeah. So there may be two things going on there. One, I'm not saying aliens built the pyramids and Machu Picchu and all of these megalithic
Not
structures.
either. I'm saying that they might have been influenced by those, but
Yeah, could
yeah,
be. Uh,
could be. I don't know.
but the like UAPs where they're transmedium and they've got video where they're dipping it into the water and then there's no splash, and it's like they've got gravity bubble and the warp drive, whatever that is. What the hell? Like, what the hell? And
Yeah,
then even like, so when you think about, we evolved to survive, right? Our senses are just primitive for survival, right? We can't see in the infrared. We can't hear ultrasound. So granted,
yeah.
We can, yeah, yeah,
To modify our genes to be able to do something like that, but yeah.
or we invent the tech, right? We invent the tech to see those
Yeah.
things, right? So, but like there are videos where you've got to, it's in the infrared and you can see them, but you can't visually see them, right? So, and if you think like if you're an advanced civilization or alien, whichever it may be, ultra terrestrial, crypto terrestrial, I don't know where they're coming from, but I don't want to be bothered by the primitive monkeys shooting missiles at me, right? I'm going to cloak, right, in the stealth technology. So I'm
Yeah.
just fascinated. Like, yeah, for me, it's like learning if there is a higher level to this, and humans aren't the highest that exists. I'd want to be able to learn from that, whatever it may be. So
Yeah, it's cool when you think about like there's so many levels of the light spectrum that are just completely out of our reach. We don't even know that they exist. So there's that whole spectrum of reality that we're completely out of touch with. And
well,
animals, dogs, how they have the sense of smell that we don't have. They can
yeah,
detect bombs, they can detect cancer. We can't do that. So that's another level of reality that we're unaware of. It makes me wonder how much stuff is going on around us that we just don't know about because we can't perceive it.
yeah, exactly. So psychedelics, that gets me into psychedelics. What anything
Oh,
that's ever
I have
occurred?
not tried any, but I'm really curious to. In Michigan, we can't really get our hands on stuff like that. I
Yeah.
know my friends out on the West Coast are like, yeah, come on out, I can hook you up, no problem. So I would be really curious to try ayahuasca or oh gosh, what are some of the other ones?
Psilocybin,
Psilocybin, yeah.
psilocybin. Yeah.
I did mushrooms once with some friends when I was out in Vegas. That was just sort of interesting. All I saw were halos around lights and felt really blissful. But other than that, I didn't have any great trip. Maybe we didn't use enough. I don't know. That
But
was
that's
just recreation.
but that's psilocybin, right? So you did
I
take,
suppose that was, yeah.
yeah.
But
Because
it wasn't like a great dose where I had a journey or anything like that.
I haven't done any of that stuff. At least psilocybin, I want to include that at some point. Just the idea, like when you were saying about how much of our senses can detect reality and what's going on around us. I mean, from anecdotal mushroom experiences, right? Magic mushroom experiences. It seems like there's all this weird stuff in shapes and sounds, and it's like, wait, is that like chemical? I don't know. I'm just interested and fascinated. You know, can I expand my consciousness to see more than I can currently see and perceive? And then even too like the brain signaling. I don't know if you've seen like psilocybin brain signaling without it and with it. It's
No,
like it's the brains that have been imaged. At least what I've seen, it's like you get a certain amount of brain that lights up just normally, and then with psilocybin, it's like vast networks interconnected, communicating with each other that didn't
wow,
exist before. Yeah. So I
that's
don't,
cool. That's really cool.
yeah, curious about that. So yeah,
I want to go to Daniel Amen's clinic and get a SPECT scan. In fact,
I don't.
I've got another friend of mine who's had a TBI, and I've been for the last year trying to get him to go with me because he needs it more than I do, to both of us to go get scanned. And I think that we're going to try to do it this October or November if we can fit it in. But I would love to see if I have any lingering effects from my concussion.
Does the Pronuvo, wouldn't the Pronuvo cover full body
It
MRI? Wouldn't they do
it
brain?
it would. I think Pronuvo is more structural, where the SPECT scan is more functional,
Mm.
if that makes sense. So if there was structural damage, the Pronuvo would see it, but the SPECT scan would light up, more functionally. They would see different parts, either dark or light or super bright, depending on, yeah, what's going on in my head.
Yeah, I wonder what they would do for rejuvenating the brain functionally in that case, or even structurally, right? Because it's not like you're out here. I mean, do you drink alcohol? I mean, it's
I do, not a lot. I mean, compared to my friends tend to think of me as a non-drinker because compared to them, I kind of am. But I do like to drink a beer occasionally. In fact, just what was it, Monday? I went out with friends to a Mexican place where we do margaritas. Now I skipped the margaritas. I only did a beer because I was doing an organic acids test, urine test, and I didn't want to really screw that up. So so I skipped out on that. But yeah, I do drink occasionally.
yeah. So it's not like you're an alcohol, drinking all the time, which I'd imagine would be bad for brain health, right? So how
Very
do you
bad. Yeah.
take someone who's already healthy and fit and very moderate alcohol intake and non-smoker, right? You don't smoke,
No,
right? So
never have.
how do you further improve upon that? I don't know that conventional medicine knows how, right? Because if they could, they'd rejuvenate, neurodegenerative diseases, right? If it was that
Right.
simple. So I'd be curious to know how they would do that.
Well, I did look up some of the protocol that they would use at the Amen Clinic, for brain healing, and HBOT is definitely one of those. The cerebrolysin peptide. What else was there? CMAX, I think, is another one, or C-Link, I think, are the three. Yeah, I think most of those are what they use for brain healing. There may be other things, but those were the only like four things that I really picked up on. I know Dave Asprey likes to do, like, I think is modafinil, some other some of those other, like, I don't know what you would call those, smart drugs, I guess.
Nootropics.
Nootropics, there you go. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I have done some nootropics. Like I've tried Alpha Brain, I've tried Qualia's product, Qualia Mind. I really liked that one when it first came out. I don't use those very often. But some of the really the big ones, like the big biohackers like Dave Asprey and Ben Greenfield are using, those are interesting to me. It's not something I can get my hands on.
It's just,
Although recently I did find a place that I might be able to order them from, so I might give those a shot just to see.
it's like, what would you look at, in terms of output biomarkers, that efficacy, right? That's the tricky thing.
Yeah, I know. Well, Dave can do all of his 40 years of Zen type scanning for his, so I don't have that available to me. It might help me be able to come up with words quicker and faster when I'm doing interviews, because I
Yeah,
know
you're
you guys love
totally
to do it
fine.
before interviews all the time, right?
I don't even think you're 62. It's like a magic number. It's like crazy. I don't see you as 62 at all, which is nuts.
I get that a lot. In fact, they were laughing today when I went to do this plasma donation, because I went to a new place, not the same place I used to go. And the guy's like, wait a minute, okay, there's an error here in your data, your year of birth now, right? And I said, well, what does it say? And he says, 62. I says, no, that's right. He's like, wait, you're 62 years old? I'm like, yeah. And so then this guy kept bragging to all the nurses, like, hey, how old do you think this guy is? And I'm like, all right, I might have had a shot with that nurse until you just blew it for me. Thanks.
Ah,
Uh, but just dumb stuff like that. Like when I was in Italy, probably shouldn't say this because my friend will see this, but I was out to dinner with my buddy who's the exact same age I am. We're eating dinner, and the waiter comes up. He's like, "Oh, is this your dad?" And I'm like, "No, no." And
so
I
your
don't think,
friend, he thought your friend was your dad?
yeah,
Holy cow.
friend was sitting right across the table from me, but he was looking at the menu and he's a little hard of hearing. So I don't think he caught that. But I was so embarrassed for him. I'm like, oh my gosh, no, don't say
Does he
that.
does he look 20 years or so older than you?
He looks his age.
Hmm.
You know, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
think he's a handsome looking guy, but he looks his age.
So wait, yeah, I know you dye your hair. So if you didn't dye your hair, it'd be
Absolutely, yes.
totally white.
And I get Botox in my forehead too, to remove I was getting big, deep rut
I got a
lines in
lot
my
of that.
forehead.
I don't know if you can see. I got a lot of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's exactly what I was getting. And it wouldn't go away, right? When you did that on purpose, then it showed. But as soon as you relax, it
Yeah,
goes away.
yeah,
Mine
yeah.
was not going away. I
Oh,
could still see the lines. They were still there. And like,
huh.
okay, this has got to go. I would see it in pictures. And I'm like, no, no, that's got to go.
So how often do you do that? The
Well,
Botox?
most people will do it like every 6 to 8 months, I'm told. I'm way too active for that. I sweat too much. I run too much. My metabolism is too fast. I end up having to do it maybe every 8 weeks instead of every 8 months.
Hmm.
And I did try Botox. I had a little bit of a reaction to it. My eyes would itch, like never stopped itching the whole like 8 weeks that I had it. And then I switched to Dysport, or Dysport is another option. Tried that, same thing. And then they tried me on Xeomin, which I guess these things only differ by some minor little protein in the chain. And Xeomin seemed to work for me. I don't have any
Nice.
sort of itching or allergic reaction to that one. So
But it's just in the forehead. Or I don't
yeah,
know.
I get it right along the top line here, because when I didn't, I was getting a weird roll. Like my friend looked at me one day and he's like, "Are you wearing a wig?" I'm like, no, what do you mean? I thought, well, maybe since I dye my hair, get my roots colored, I thought maybe he was just seeing the white from the roots. But then when I went and looked in the mirror later at myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, there's a strange roll right there. I guess it's where the muscle, there's a muscle there that somehow naturally ends. So that's the edge of it. And yeah, it just looked funny. And so I mentioned that to them next time I was in there, and they're like, oh yeah, oh, okay, we can go up a little bit higher and we can take care of that. So they did. And I did try my eyes, but I didn't like it. It gave me it gave me a funny eye look. And the thing was, when I got it done, when I saw myself in the mirror, I recognized that same look in some other people. There's a
Without
very,
naming names, without naming names, I'm
not,
sure.
without naming names, there's a
Yeah.
very, well, friends, people I know, yes, but
Oh,
also there's a very famous actor that's on is in a sitcom or was in a series. I haven't seen it lately, so maybe it'll come out again this fall. But a very popular guy. He was in sci-fi stuff, early on, and then, was in this new series. And there was something about his eyes that just looked odd to me. I had the same eyes. So I recognized it right away. Oh, okay, he's getting Botox in his eyes. That's why. It makes perfect sense.
and then
So,
the beard too. You've got to be dyeing the beard. Right?
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The hair I'll get colored because I can't do it myself. I can't see the back. But the beard I do myself.
So
I'll do
then
the beard
you,
right after I get the hair. Hmm?
but then you'd have white hairs everywhere. I guess they don't. You just shave to the
No,
you
no,
notice.
my arm hairs are still black. My leg hairs are still
Interesting.
black.
And then
My
eyebrows.
eyebrows, yeah, I don't touch any of that. That's all still natural.
Interesting.
So that's how I know. Like people say, "Oh, well, you're dyeing your hair. What's your natural color?" I said, "Well, this is my hair is naturally black. I could go brown, but then if I did brown, it would look funny. The lights just dimmed.
It's getting late. Yeah.
We're starting the evening wind down here. So
Yeah. Yeah.
let me crank it back up again. I could probably tell Amelia, but I don't really want to do that.
That's right.
Um,
We can wrap. I don't. It's all good. We.
so just to finish that thought, though, I was
Yeah.
going to say that the my chest hair at one point was totally white. So that I had to shave because that looked funny, right? But then somewhere along the line, I don't know what's doing it. Now the chest hair is 50-50.
Oh, interesting.
And I think that's really cool. If I knew exactly what was doing it, I would do more of it so that I could get all of it to go back to
Could be.
black.
It could be NAD. I've seen anecdotally people with the NAD stuff. So yeah.
Maybe, maybe. I don't know.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, Dave. I greatly appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, sometime relatively soon. We got all the blood test stuff and biomarker stuff. We didn't even go through the deep dive on that. But yeah,
Whenever you want, because I'm having a blast with this. So I'm next week, tomorrow, like whatever fits your schedule, whatever you feel like doing, let me know. Hit me up.
sounds good. I appreciate you, Dave. All right,
And you know what? We're friends now, so you can call me and just BS with me anytime you feel like.
high five. Very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Dave. Talk to you
All
soon.
right. Thank you. Take care.